Hi, welcome back guys. This is your Sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Naruto Inherits Gojo's Limitless? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Chapter 1. The Honored One. The village of Konoha was alive. Lanterns cast a warm, festive glow over streets packed with smiling faces. The air was thick with the scent of grilled squid and sweet dango, punctuated by the laughter of children and the cheerful shouts of vendors. It was a celebration of victory, a memorial for the day the fourth Hokage had defeated the nine-tailed fox. For one small, blonde-haired boy, it was a day of mourning. Naruto Uzumaki moved through the throng like a ghost, his shoulders slumped and his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The vibrant joy of the festival was a wall he could not penetrate. The smiles of the villagers turned to cold glares when they landed on him, and their laughter softened into venomous whispers. Every year on this night, the glares grew sharper, the whispers crueler. This was the night his annual nightmare began. He could not stand it any longer. Slipping away from the crowded streets, he sought refuge in the quiet shadows, his path taking him toward the looming darkness of the forest of death. He did not notice the figures detaching themselves from the crowd to follow him. Inside the forest, the festive sounds were replaced by the chirping of crickets and the rustle of unseen things in the undergrowth. Naruto sat on a tree root, tracing patterns in the dirt with a stick, when the snap of a twig made him look up. A ring of men, their faces twisted with hatred and smelling of sake, had surrounded him. In their hands they held farming tools and rusty kunai. Naruto asked why they were always hurting him, his voice trembling as he scrambled to his feet and protested that he had done nothing to deserve it. One of the villagers sneered and accused him of being a demon, claiming he had torn their families apart. Naruto insisted he would never do such a thing, tears welling in his bright blue eyes. A villager spat that they were going to finish the fourth Hokage's work, and another shouted for him to shut up, brandishing a sickle. The circle tightened, the glint of sharpened metal reflecting in Naruto's terrified eyes. They were about to lunge when the air itself seemed to ripple. A figure that had not been there a moment before now stood between Naruto and the mob. He was an old man, tall and slender, with a shock of stark white hair and an unnerving straightness. A simple black blndfld covered his eyes. The old man commented on the lively party and noted that one of the guests was not having much fun. A villager told him to get lost, insisting it was none of his business because they were about to kill a demon. The old man tilted his head and, with a faint smile, called the attackers a pack of jackals surrounding a helpless child. A villager cursed and charged forward with a kunai. Then, something impossible happened. The kunai stopped, not blocked or parried, but stalled in midair as if frozen. Inches from the old man's face, it hung suspended. The attacker stared in shock. With a soft, mechanical click, the man's movement halted and he toppled to the ground, stunned and unmoving, without any obvious wound. The old man had not appeared to move at all. What followed was a blur of motion too fast to follow. Quick, precise movements swept through the clearing. Several attackers were disarmed and knocked unconscious in a few fluid, non-graphic exchanges that looked like something from an intense, stylized animation. Within seconds, the forest clearing fell silent, the only sound the settling of leaves and the faint rustle of the underbrush. The old man stood among the bodies, his clothes unmarked, his posture calm. He moved toward Naruto, the space between them folding as if by a blink, and knelt with a surprisingly gentle presence to check on him. The old man asked if Naruto was all right. Naruto could only nod, too stunned to speak. The next morning Naruto awoke in an unfamiliar room. It was simple, clean, and filled with the soft light of dawn. The old man sat at a small table, sipping tea, and gestured to the seat opposite him. He asked Naruto if he wanted to be strong. Naruto's head snapped up and a spark of his old fire returned. He said that he wanted to become strong so he could be Hokage and protect the village, convinced that as Hokage everyone would respect him. The old man took a slow sip of his tea and questioned why Naruto would want to bleed for a village that celebrated his suffering, calling that goal more a collar than a dream. Naruto insisted that being Hokage would make people accept him, citing the third Hokage's reassurance that the villagers hated him only because they were afraid of what they did not understand. The old man replied bluntly that the third had lied. He said the villagers did not fear Naruto, they hated him because the monster that had nearly erased them from existence was sealed inside him, the nine-tailed fox. Naruto's world tilted. He touched his stomach and whispered a stunned question about the nine tails being inside him and who would do such a thing. The old man answered that the one who had valued the village above his own son had sealed the beast inside him, Naruto's father, the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Silence filled the room, broken only by Naruto's shaky breaths. The old man suggested that Naruto could ask the nine tails the rest of its story sometime, then shifted the conversation back to the present. He urged Naruto to forget the village's hate for a while and focus on himself, asking if he wanted the power to make sure no one could ever touch him again. Naruto looked up, his eyes full of confusion, grief, and a new burning resolve, and he nodded slowly and deliberately that he did want that power. A wide, confident grin spread across the old man's face, and he introduced himself as Satoru Gojo, telling Naruto to call him Gojo-sensei. He lowered his binocle just enough to reveal an eye that seemed to hold the sky itself, a brilliant, piercing blue that pulsed with power. Gojo clapped his hands together theatrically and joked about starting Naruto's torture before coughing and correcting himself to say training. Naruto stared at him with a weary, deadpan expression. Gojo remarked that the other had been about to say torture and he winked. Limitless. This technique grants its user near absolute control over space through manipulation of cursed energy at an atomic level. It serves as the foundation for several techniques. Beyond basic spatial manipulation, Limitless has 3 standard forms and 1 non-standard form. Infinity. As the neutral form of Limitless, infinity is commonly misunderstood as the ability to stop. Its true power is to slow things down. When something attempts to reach Satoru, it meets the space between them, slowed by the infinity. Black Flash. This technique creates spatial distortion when a user connects a physical strike with cursed energy within 1/millionth of a second. The phenomenon causes cursed power to flash black, amplifying the attack's potency by roughly 2.5 times. Reverse curse techniques. Gojo is one of the few sorcerers who can use a reverse curse technique to heal himself. He perfected this method on his deathbed after his first fight with Toji Fushiguro. With it, Gojo can heal and channel positive energy into the infinity, enabling his red and hollow purple attacks. Cursed technique Lapse Blue. The reinforced version of the neutral Limitless amplifies negative energy to produce a vacuum. The technique forces the surrounding space to correct itself, drawing matter toward the commanded area. Curse technique Lapse Maximum Cursed Energy Output, Blue. The user creates a center of gravity in a specific space capable of attracting and compressing matter, akin to a black hole. The user can move this point of gravity at will, greatly augmenting its destructive capacity. Cursed technique Reversal Red. As the inversion of blue, red produces the opposite effect. By reversing blue's properties, the user causes a divergence in their infinity and generates a powerful repulsive force that pushes matter away. As a reverse curse technique powered by positive cursed energy, red has roughly twice the destructive power of blue. Sealing technique. A technique that binds objects, living beings, chakra, and a wide variety of other things within another object. Sealing technique can also be used to restrict movement or to unseal items from within something or someone. Flying Raijin. Rasengan. Tactical genius. Immense physical strength. Immense speed and reflexes. Master hand-to-hand combatant. Naruto, in addition to his overwhelming energy reserves, is an incredibly formidable martial artist in close combat with extraordinary physical prowess. Illusion technique will be able to easily release illusion techniques but will not use them. Personality. Naruto is kind to those he trusts and willing to risk himself for his loved ones. He is laid back and extremely confident in his abilities, seeing himself as among the strongest, much like Gojo. His opinion of others often hinges on his judgment of their strength, and he can be apathetic toward anyone he deems weak except for those he cares about. He is arrogant and thinks of himself as a superior figure. When facing opponents, he tends to be cocky and laid back, often insulting them by calling them weak. Chapter 2. Of Foxes, Sages, and a Father's Legacy. The first 2 years were a whirlwind of impossible concepts made real. Under Gojo's tutelage, Naruto learned to see the world not as matter, but as a tapestry of energy. He was a natural, his massive chakra reserves translated into an ocean of power that even Gojo found impressive. But to truly inherit Gojo's power, a bond of spirit alone was not enough. It required a deeper connection, a joining of soul and blood. One evening, under a full moon, Gojo sat Naruto down and told him that to walk his path he would have to become his son in more than name. Gojo explained that the Limitless technique and the 6 eyes were tied to his blood and that to make them Naruto's too, they would need to forge a formal pact. He described a ritual, a binding vow, in which Gojo would offer his lineage, a piece of himself, to be accepted by Naruto's soul, and in return Naruto would carry his will. It was an adoption written not on paper but on reality itself. They drew each other's blood and let it mingle in a ceremonial bowl while Gojo recited the ancient words of his clan. As the vow sealed, Naruto felt a strange energy settle deep within him, like a key waiting for the right lock. Gojo returned to his usual grin and told Naruto that his real training was beginning. Naruto learned to pull the world closer with blue and push it away with red. Their bond, forged in the crucible of intense training, deepened from teacher and student into something far more profound. Gojo became the father Naruto never had, and Naruto became the legacy Gojo had not expected to find. In the 3rd year, Gojo announced that it was time for Naruto to meet his roommate. Gojo said the being had been quiet for too long and instructed Naruto to meditate and focus on the energy inside him that wasn't his. Naruto did as instructed. He sat, crossed his legs, and fell inward. The world dissolved, and he awoke to the sound of dripping water and the musty smell of a forgotten sewer. Before him stood a colossal cage sealed with a paper talisman labeled Seal. Behind the bars, a pair of slitted, blood-red eyes opened, burning with an ancient, bitter intelligence. The great fox greeted him mentally with a rumble that felt like an earthquake, noting that his jailer had finally visited. Naruto told the fox that he had come for the truth and asked what had happened on the day he was born. The Nine-Tails Kurama recounted the tale. He described the appearance of a masked man with a feared eye, the kidnapping, and the chaos that followed. Kurama explained how the masked man took him from Naruto's mother, used his eye to control him, and unleashed him on the village. He spoke of Minato's confrontation with the masked man and the desperate decision that followed. Kurama said that the extraction of a tailed beast was always fatal. It cost Naruto's mother her life. He described how she used her remaining strength to bind him with chains so that Naruto could be saved, and how the final actions were intended to shape the village's view of the newborn. Kurama added with bitter sarcasm that the village had done a splendid job of making Naruto into a hero. When Naruto asked why his mother had died, Kurama explained that the extraction could not be survived and that his own violent reaction in those moments had led to terrible consequences. Kurama also spoke of centuries of being treated as a weapon, sealed and controlled by humans, and of his longing for freedom. Silence stretched between them. Kurama asked Naruto if he hated him now. Naruto replied firmly that he did not. He recognized the fox as a prisoner lashing out and said that no one deserved what had been done to him. Naruto stepped closer to the bars and asked the fox for his true name, not just the title of Nine Tails. Kurama's massive eye widened in surprise at the question and then, after a pause, revealed his name. He raised a colossal paw to the bars and offered a gesture of solidarity, explaining that a simple contact would allow Naruto access to his chakra. Naruto smiled and bumped his small fist against the giant's. As he looked around the dreary sewer, he thought they needed to redecorate. He imagined a vast, sun-drenched forest with rolling hills and a clear river, and the place shifted to match his vision. The cage bars dissolved, replaced by a massive, comfortable den for the fox. Kurama thanked him, his voice thick with emotion, and offered a caution born of experience. Trust no one in the village, especially not the Hokage. Naruto countered with determination, saying he would still look for the precious people he could protect. He awoke a minute later in the real world with a genuine smile on his face. Gojo grinned goofily and asked how it had gone. Naruto replied that it had gone great. Naruto mentioned that he had made a friend named Kurama. Gojo cheered that, because of that, Naruto's training would become 10 times harder. Naruto pointed out that Gojo was definitely going to say torture again. The 4th year was the year of the sage. Drawn by Naruto's immense potential and his connection to Kurama, the spirit of Hagoromo Otsutsuki appeared in his meditations. Hagoromo revealed Naruto's nature as the reincarnation of his son Azura and warned of the Ten Tails' potential return. Hagoromo trained Naruto in sage techniques and the foundational teachings of Ninshu, enabling Naruto to unlock fragmented memories of his past lives. The 5th year was the year of his ghosts. While mastering Kurama's chakra form, Naruto's rage and hatred momentarily overwhelmed him. Just as he was about to go on a rampage, he was pulled into a deeper part of his mindscape. There, bathed in a soft light, stood the shimmering chakra remnants of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. The reunion with his mother was a torrent of joyful tears. When he faced his father, his expression turned to ice. He resented Minato for the burden placed upon him. Their meeting was tense and tragically short, their chakra fading fast. Before they disappeared, they placed their hands on his forehead, gifting him all their knowledge and techniques. 1 year later, Gojo's room was quiet, save for the old man's labored breaths. His once boundless energy had ebbed, his body finally succumbing to the ravages of a long, hard-fought life. Naruto knelt by his side, clutching the frail hand and weeping. Gojo reminded Naruto that he had known this day would come and told him it was all right. He squeezed Naruto's hand and said he had one last gift, the key to everything they had worked for. He was giving Naruto his eyes. Gojo urged Naruto to live without regrets and to use his ridiculous strength to protect those he chose, and he spoke his love as a father. With one final, peaceful exhale, Satoru Gojo was gone. Naruto's grief was raw and physical, but he was not alone. 2 figures held him. One was Kurama, manifested outside the seal and now able to appear beside him as a confidant and companion. The other was Enko Mitarashi, a tough, spirited woman he had met during a brutal survival exercise in the Forest of Death. Their shared rebellious nature had sparked a deep friendship that grew into something like family, and they stood with him now. After the burial, Naruto knew what had to be done. With Enko and Kurama assisting, the solemn operation began as he accepted his father's final gift and burden. The implantation of the 6 eyes was a success. When Naruto opened his new eyes for the first time, the world exploded into an infinite, intricate web of energy. He could perceive everything. With that sight, his control over the Limitless became absolute. For 6 years, the village of Konoha had known a different Naruto, a loudmouthed, prank-loving academy student who loudly proclaimed his dream of becoming Hokage from the rooftops. That public persona had been a shadow clone, a perfect performance piece taught to him by Gojo. While the clone played the part of the village idiot, the real Naruto was miles away, training to become something far greater. Chapter 3: The Honored Ones Chosen. Morning light filtered into the room, casting a warm glow on Naruto and the woman nearby. Her dark hair was splayed across the pillows and the clan markings on her cheeks were softened by sleep. This was Tsume Inazuka, matriarch of the Inazuka clan, mother of Kiba and Hana, and one of Konoha's most formidable figures. She had formed a close, secret bond with Naruto during the trials in the Forest of Death, a connection forged in battle and mutual respect. Gojo had judged Naruto's forest training insufficient and insisted he needed real-world combat. Gojo had instructed him to find some low-level thugs or rogue ninja outside the village and gather data in actual fights, advising him not to break them too badly. Naruto prepared by weaving transformation signs into a form meant as a tribute to his mentor. His hair turned snow-white, his whisker marks vanished, and a piercing blue gaze lay hidden beneath a BLNDFLD. He had become a miniature reflection of Gojo for the operation. He did not have to travel far. He found a Konoha team pinned down in a clearing by a rabble of bandits and rogue ninja. Leading the Konoha shinobi was Tsume. Naruto landed between the two forces without a sound and adopted a casual stance. Tsume warned him that the situation was dangerous and urged him to step back, But Naruto answered with a cocky confidence that the troublemakers were weak. The attackers erupted in mockery and charged. Before the first of them could take 2 steps, Naruto vanished and then reappeared inside the enemy formation. He moved with a single, precise strike that incapacitated one attacker and then flowed through the others in a rapid, controlled sequence of maneuvers that left them neutralized and defeated without lingering violence. The encounter was over in seconds. Naruto stood amid disarmed and unconscious foes. Sum halted him and acknowledged that he was terrifying, noting that he looked the same age as her son but fought with an intensity far beyond his years. Naruto explained simply that he was being trained by the strongest. Sum observed that his sensei must be arrogant. Naruto agreed. One teammate protested that the kid was dangerous, but Sum decided to take her chances, reasoning that if he had wanted them dead, they would already be so. By a quiet river, Naruto dropped his transformation. His whisker marks returned and his hair shifted back to its sun-kissed blonde. Sum's eyes widened in recognition. She identified Naruto Uzumaki as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and demanded to know what he was doing outside the village. Naruto explained that his sensei had sent him out for combat experience and that the Hokage did not know. He warned that if she told anyone, there would be severe consequences. Sum did not flinch and assured him that his secret was safe and that she owed him for saving her team. Naruto said he would be leaving, and Sum asked if they could meet again. Naruto told her to come to the Forest of Death if she wanted to find him, then vanished. She had come. She met Gojo, Anko, and even Kurama. She admitted that she had once offered to adopt him as a baby, but Hiruzen had denied her, and that had hardened Naruto's feelings toward the old man. Over the months their meetings became more frequent, their bond deepened, and it grew into love. Sum became another pillar in his small, strange family. Sum asked if he was ready for his big debut at the academy graduation. Naruto said he felt nothing and credited the shadow clone for getting him through the ceremony. He joked that he would have jumped off the Hokage monument rather than attend himself. Sum commented that Kiba was excited but too arrogant and that it would get him in trouble someday. Naruto chuckled and noted that Kiba was, after all, his stepson. Sum laughed and looked forward to seeing Kiba's reaction when he found out. She suggested Kiba might try to kill Naruto. Naruto said Kiba would fail, and Sum lowered her voice to a reassuring murmur that nobody could beat him. Naruto responded with an affectionate gesture, a brief embrace that conveyed their close bond. The real Naruto spent the day training while a single, dedicated shadow clone sat in the academy playing the role of the village fool one last time. The written exam was treated casually by the clone, who intentionally got some answers wrong. The shuriken and kunai test was similarly staged for comedy, and the taijutsu match against Sasuke was performed as a clumsy act. For the ninjutsu test, Irika asked the clone to demonstrate the transformation, substitution, and clone techniques. The clone produced a harmless, theatrical transformation that scattered a shower of harmless paper confetti and caused Irika to stumble in surprise. After a serious reminder from Irika, the clone performed an adequate transformation and substitution. For the final test, the clone attempted the clone jutsu and produced imperfect duplicates that collapsed theatrically, drawing laughter from the class. Irika expressed disappointment and declared that the clone had failed. The clone put on a sorrowful performance and left. Later, while the clone sat on a swing watching families celebrate, Mizuki approached in the role of a sympathetic teacher and suggested a secret way to graduate, stealing the forbidden scroll of sealing from the Hokage's office. The clone accepted. That night the clone entered the Hokage's office and offered a dramatic distraction, transforming into a cloud of paper butterflies that startled Hiruzen into briefly losing consciousness. The clone seized the scroll and slipped away. In a hidden clearing the clone unrolled the scroll. Through their shared link, Naruto absorbed the contents at once and began instructing the clone to practice the shadow clone jutsu just as Hiruzen, revived and alarmed, sent Irika after them. Mizuki revealed his betrayal and accused Naruto of being the nine-tailed fox. The clone froze in apparent shock. Mizuki threw a large shuriken, and Irika moved to intercept. The projectile was caught effortlessly between 2 fingers as the clone dissipated and the real Naruto took its place. The goofy, heartbroken demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold, detached presence. Naruto remarked on the poor throw with weary disdain. Iruka and Hiruzen watched in stunned silence. This was not the Naruto they knew. Mizuki raged that he would kill the demon, but Naruto remained composed. He created a vast number of solid clones, each radiating a fierce determination. The ANBU camouflaged in the trees tensed at the sudden escalation. Naruto declared that Mizuki had broken the law and must be stopped. The clones moved in and subdued Mizuki quickly and decisively, leaving him incapacitated but without graphic injury. As Naruto approached with a kunai, a boar-masked ANBU appeared and informed him that the Hokage wanted Mizuki alive for interrogation. Naruto sighed and handed over the traitor and the scroll. Iruka, shaken, removed his own headband and tied it around Naruto's forehead, congratulating him on his graduation. The next day the Hokage summoned an ANBU to fetch Naruto. The ANBU found the clone in the apartment provided by the third Hokage, and the clone dissipated as ordered, allowing Naruto to absorb its memories. He went to the Hokage's office, where Hiruzen asked after his well-being and urged him to continue training. Naruto replied that he was fine and prepared to leave. As he was about to go, a young boy burst into the room with wooden kunai and tripped over his own scarf, falling face first. The boy declared that it was time for the old man to die and that he would become Hokage afterward. Naruto quipped that the boy had merely tripped and suggested he try a shorter scarf next time, then delivered a light, corrective tap to the boy's head to teach him a lesson. The boy protested about his lineage as the Hokage's grandson. The room held a tense, chaotic energy as everyone reacted to the interruption. A glasses-wearing high-ranking ninja demanded to know how the other could act so boldly. The high-ranking ninja continued to ramble, only stopping when he noticed that Naruto and Konohamaru were gone. Hiruzen told the high-ranking ninja that Naruto had left during his rant and suggested he go find him, pointing toward the door. Time skipped 20 minutes. Naruto and Konohamaru stood on a training field. Konohamaru revealed a plan to confront the third village leader and become the village leader himself to gain recognition. Naruto explained that there were no shortcuts to that goal and instead taught Konohamaru a playful transformation technique that caused embarrassment rather than harm. As Konohamaru practiced the technique, Ebisu arrived and scolded him for being with Naruto. Konohamaru defended his new friend, and Naruto demonstrated a larger-scale illusion that created a sudden, chaotic crowd of admirers. Ebisu became flustered and overwhelmed by the unexpected scene and fainted from embarrassment. Konohamaru grinned proudly at how impressive the technique had looked. Naruto told him he would see him later and then left the training field. Back at Naruto's home near the Forest of Death, Anko greeted him warmly and they discussed his success in the graduation exam and Mizuki's weakness. They had a private conversation and later went their separate ways. Chapter End. Chapter 4. The Test of the Honored One. A week later, team placements. When Team 7 was announced, Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Naruto Uzumaki, the loudest reaction came from Kiba, who shouted in disbelief that he could not understand how the last-place student had passed. Iruka responded sternly that the village leader had made the decision and that Kiba should take his complaint up with him. Team 7 waited and waited. 3 hours after all the other teams had left, their sensei finally arrived, but Naruto still was not there. Sakura protested loudly about the lateness. Kakashi Hatake explained with a lazy smile that a black cat had crossed his path and he had taken the long way, then asked where the third member was. At that moment Naruto appeared behind them, silent and altered. The short, orange-clad boy they knew was gone. In his place stood someone taller, with snow-white hair and a black Bindefelde covering his eyes. He wore a high-collared dark jacket, slim dark pants, and boots. The whisker marks on his face were gone. He projected an unnerving calm and an overwhelming sense of power. Kakashi and Sasuke both thought at once that they could not sense him. Sakura recovered first and berated Naruto for being late. Naruto offered a casual excuse about getting lost on the road of life. Kakashi's visible eye widened with delight at the uncanny resemblance and the change in demeanor. On the roof, the introductions were brief. Kakashi kept his background vague. Sakura's attention focused on Sasuke, and Sasuke's on his desire to defeat his brother. Kakashi then turned to the transformed boy. Naruto introduced himself as Naruto Gojo and gave a casual, cryptic list of likes, dislikes, and hobbies, admitting that he had had a dream the night before but could not remember it. Kakashi's smile faded. This was not the knucklehead host of the tailed beast he had been briefed on. He announced a bell test for the next morning and warned them not to eat breakfast. The bell test? Sasuke and Sakura arrived tired and hungry. Kakashi showed up 3 hours late, followed 10 minutes later by Naruto, both giving the same black cat excuse. When the test began, all three disappeared from sight. Kakashi thought it was good that they knew how to hide, and he pulled out a worn paperback to read. He could sense Sasuke and Sakura but could not sense Naruto at all. It was as if Naruto did not exist. Sasuke attacked first, but his impressive junior ninja skills proved useless against the seasoned Jonin. He was eventually trapped by a hunter technique and buried up to his neck. Kakashi then located Sakura and subdued her with a low-level illusion, disappointed by her lack of awareness. When he returned to check on Sasuke, the boy was gone from the hole. Naruto had appeared, freed him with a single touch, and vanished again. The test continued with Sasuke trying and failing repeatedly as the timer ticked down. Bored, Kakashi leaned against a tree to read. A voice then whispered directly in his ear, warning him not to let his guard down or he could be killed. Kakashi spun around with a kunai in hand, but Naruto was already 10 feet away with his hands in his pockets. Kakashi thanked him, heart hammering, and Naruto casually walked away. The Jonin felt a deep unease settle over him. The boy had not even tried to attack. There had been no feint, no attempt to take the bells. It was as if the test had been beneath him. Shaking his head, Kakashi forced himself to dismiss the feeling and went back to his book, though the training ground felt strangely heavy. When the alarm on the log finally rang, its shrill cry cut through the silence. Kakashi snapped his book shut and declared time up, then told the dejected Sasuke and Sakura that because none of them had been able to take the bells, they all failed. Sakura looked ready to cry, and Sasuke's fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were white with frustration. Naruto, however, yawned and casually reached into his jacket pocket. A soft metallic jingle announced what he produced, 2 small silver bells dangling from his fingertips. Everyone stared. Kakashi's visible eye widened in shock. He instinctively looked down at his own waist and found that where the bells should have been, 2 smoothly polished rocks were tied in their place. Kakashi's thoughts raced back to the whisper in his ear and the cold shock that had made him jump. In that single, fleeting moment of surprise, Naruto had moved without a sound and performed a flawless switch, a sleight of hand so masterful that even a renowned Jonin had not detected it. Kakashi realized that Naruto had used that opportunity to steal the bells, and a shiver ran down his spine at the skill required. Kakashi regained his composure and told Naruto that he had the bells and thus passed. He asked what Naruto would do now and whether he would keep them or give one to a teammate. Without speaking, Naruto tossed one bell to Sasuke and the other to Sakura, who caught them out of reflex. Kakashi then stated that Naruto would return to the academy. Naruto shrugged and agreed without apparent concern. Sasuke stepped forward, holding out his bell and insisting that Naruto take it back because Naruto had been the one who had earned them. Kakashi informed them that they had passed. Sakura looked from a stoic Sasuke to an indifferent Naruto, nodded in agreement, and returned her bell, telling them that Sasuke was right and that Naruto had earned it. Kakashi watched them, a hidden smile forming behind his mask, and reminded them that the rules were the rules. Because Naruto had given them the bells, they passed while he failed. Sakura then spoke with surprising firmness that if Naruto was going back to the academy, they would go back too. Sasuke grunted his assent, and for the first time the 3 of them were united. Kakashi's visible eye curved into a wide, happy smile as he explained that the real purpose of the test had been to see whether they could put the team before themselves. He warned that the world of shinobi chewed up those who went it alone and that they were supposed to realize that taking the bells required working together. They had failed that part, but in the end they had refused to abandon a comrade, and that was why they passed. He led them from the training ground to the village cemetery and stopped before a tall black obelisk covered in names. Kakashi spoke softly about the memorial stone, explaining that the names of the Leaf Village's heroes were carved there and that these people had died protecting the village. He placed a hand on the stone and reminded them of a lesson one of his comrades had taught him. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse. Sakura was visibly moved, her eyes shining with inspiration. Sasuke remained impassive, his mind focused solely on his own path to power. Companions were a distraction he could not afford. Naruto, however, felt a cold, bitter irony wash over him. He thought the village, its leader, and men like Kakashi had abandoned him the day he was born. Kakashi told them to meet at the village leader's tower the next morning for their first mission, took a final glance at the stone, and vanished in a swirl of leaves. Sasuke turned to Naruto, curiosity getting the better of him as he asked how Naruto had taken the bells, but when he looked, Naruto had already disappeared as silently as he had appeared. The village leader's office was filled with reports from the high-ranking ninja instructors. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed and rubbed his temples while listening. The instructors reported that Team 8 passed but needed improvements. Their teamwork was good, but Kiba was arrogant, Shino needed to improve his close combat techniques, and Hinata lacked confidence. Team 10 also passed but had issues. Choji was too kind-hearted to fight effectively, Ino was herself, and Shikamaru's genius was held back by crippling laziness. Hiruzen instructed the instructors to work on those issues and dismissed them. 3 hours later, Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves. Hiruzen asked how Kakashi's team had done. Kakashi replied that they had passed, but his tone lacked its usual cheer. He recounted the entire test, from Sasuke and Sakura's individual failures to Naruto's baffling behavior and the impossible theft of the bells, culminating in Naruto's apparent sacrifice for his teammates. Hiruzen listened intently, his pipe forgotten in his hand, and grew more troubled with every word. Kakashi then warned that there was something very wrong with Naruto. He described Naruto's changed appearance, his stealth, speed, and senses, all beyond the level of an entry-level ninja. Kakashi called Naruto an enigma, and said the boy had introduced himself as Naruto Gojo. Hiruzen wondered whether a trainer named Gojo had taken Naruto under his wing, but Kakashi felt the change was deeper than training in actual fundamental change. Hiruzen accepted that to understand they would have to ask Naruto himself and ordered that they keep a close eye on him. Kakashi vanished again, and Hiruzen sank back in his chair, staring at the monstrous stack of paperwork on his desk and muttering about how the late Minato had managed to finish his own work so quickly. 1 month later, the village leader's office had become a familiar waiting room for Team. Their reality had been a string of low-level missions chasing stray cats, pulling weeds, painting fences. Sasuke brooded over his frustration, Sakura complained, and Naruto kept up his enthusiastic disguise persona. Kakashi, as always, was late. Hiruzen used the time to study Naruto and noted that Kakashi had not been exaggerating. He asked Naruto how he navigated with the BLNDFLD. Naruto explained that he channeled a small amount of chakra to his optic nerves, allowing him to perceive his surroundings through the fabric. Hiruzen recognized this as an eye technique and pressed for more details. Naruto claimed it helped him regulate his chakra expenditure with extreme precision and that, for now, that was its primary function. Sasuke and Sakura exchanged a simultaneous, thunderous thought about the possibility of an eye technique, but Sasuke concluded with relief that it would not compare to his Sharingan. After a month of tedium, Naruto used his clone's connection to the village leader to secure a C-rank mission escorting a bridge builder named Tazuna to the Land of Waves. When Tazuna later sized them up, complaining about their appearance and their suitability as bodyguards, Sakura bristled to retort, but Kakashi raised a hand to placate him and assured Tazuna that he was a high-ranking ninja and any trouble would be handled. The journey toward the Land of Waves was uneventful until Kakashi's sharp eyes spotted an odd puddle shimmering on the sun-baked road, clearly an amateurish trap. He decided to watch how they would react without revealing his awareness. Naruto noticed it too and hid a faint flicker of amusement. As they passed the puddle, 2 figures erupted and attacked, chains with gauntlets flashing in the sun. The attackers moved with sudden speed and wrapped chains around Kakashi in an instant, then unleashed a violent strike that sent him tumbling. One of the attackers laughed triumphantly that they had one down. Sakura screamed, and Sasuke froze, eyes wide with shock. As the 2 rogue ninja bypassed the terrified genin and lunged for Tazuna, Their path was suddenly blocked by Naruto standing before them, his expression unreadable. Brilliant golden chains erupted from his back, lashing out like sentient vipers. They coiled around the demon brothers, binding them completely, and the moment the chains made contact, the assassins felt their chakras seize up, their connection to their power severed. From the trees, the apparently dead Kakashi watched with his Sharingan wide. The shredded body on the ground transformed into a log. Kakashi recognized the chains as Lady Kushina's adamantine sealing chains and realized Naruto had awakened them. Dropping down with a mask of professional calm, Kakashi praised Naruto for his timing and control. Sakura felt relief flood through her at the sight of Kakashi alive, and then she demanded to know why he had not intervened sooner. Kakashi explained that he had needed to identify the target and the reason assassin-level enemies were after a simple bridge builder. He gestured to Tazuna and told him he had some explaining to do. Tazuna confessed about the shipping tyrant Gojo and the bridge that threatened his monopoly. The mission's true nature was revealed as a rank far beyond the genin's usual remit. After a tense discussion shaped by Naruto's bored confidence and Sasuke's drive to prove himself, the team agreed to continue. Kakashi efficiently neutralized the demon brothers and sealed them in a scroll as a grim message. They pressed on. The arrival of the true enemy changed the mood entirely. The air grew thick with mist as their boat glided through the mangroves of the land of waves. When the group stepped onto the shore, an unnerving silence settled. Kakashi ordered everyone to duck, and they hit the dirt as a gargantuan blade, as tall as a man, cartwheeled through the air and slammed into a tree trunk. A man materialized on the hilt of the blade, arms crossed and face wrapped in bandages. Zabuza Momochi announced himself as the demon of the hidden mist and taunted Kakashi as the copy ninja. Kakashi pushed up his headband to reveal his crimson, spinning eye, and Sasuke gasped at the sight of the Sharingan. Kakashi told Sasuke there was no time for questions and focused on the new opponent. Zabuza sneered that things did not have to be difficult and demanded the old man in exchange for the team's lives. Kakashi refused and took a fighting stance. Zabuza blurred through hand seals and unleashed his hiding in mist technique, replacing the world with impenetrable white fog. Visibility dropped to zero and the air grew cold, heavy with killing intent as Zabuza taunted them by listing potential vital targets. Then, with a sharp gust of wind, Naruto casually dispelled the mist, standing with one hand outstretched. Zabuza muttered his annoyance at the boy. The two jonin clashed in a blur of steel and taijutsu. Kakashi's Sharingan allowed him to predict Zabuza's moves and force the demon back, but Zabuza countered with a feint and substitution. Kakashi found himself caught as a sphere of water enveloped him. Zabuza formed a water clone and gloated that Kakashi was trapped. Struggling against the liquid prison, Kakashi urged the younger team members to run, warning them that this opponent was beyond their match and that they needed to get Tazuna to safety. Sasuke and Sakura stood frozen, not by fear alone but by the weight of Zabuza's killing intent. Naruto, meanwhile, stretched and prepared to face the threat, acting with a cocky confidence that belied the danger. Kakashi warned Naruto that Zabuza was in a different league, but Naruto replied with calm assurance that everything would be fine and that the enemy was weak. Zabuza's water clone surged forward, sword raised to deliver a devastating strike. The massive blade sliced through the air and then stopped, hanging suspended less than an inch from Naruto's neck, held by nothing. The clone pushed with all its might, but the blade would not move. It was as if the space between them had become an impassable wall. Naruto sidestepped without answering, and the clone, released from the opposing force, stumbled forward and destabilized into a puddle. Naruto then walked to the water prison and struck the sphere. It shattered like glass, freeing a stunned Kakashi. Kakashi staggered out of the shattered prison, gasping for air and filled with both shock and relief at what he had just witnessed. He warned Naruto to stay back and protect Tazuna, but Naruto, his demeanor shifted to a cold, analytical focus, insisted he wanted to finish the fight. The amused arrogance was gone. The boy's expression was all business. Zabuza snapped that the game was over and vowed the boy would not leave alive. Naruto's quiet reply that Zabuza talked too much was the final spark. Zabuza vanished with a deliberate erasure from sight. Kakashi scanned frantically and warned Naruto that Zabuza had reappeared behind him. Zabuza materialized directly behind Naruto, his massive blade raised for a devastating finishing strike. Without turning, Naruto bent backward at the waist in a move that seemed impossible, letting the blade whistle inches above his blndfld. Using the water under his hands as a springboard, Naruto flipped backward into a standing position 10 feet away. Zabuza acknowledged Naruto's flexibility and lunged again, this time spinning his sword in a whirlwind of steel intended to overwhelm with strikes from every angle. Naruto remained still as Zabuza's legendary weapon ground to a halt a single inch from the boy's neck. Zabuza pushed with all his strength, straining and roaring, but the sword would not move. Astonished, Zabuza demanded what sorcery held the blade in place, unable to understand what force opposed him. He summoned 2 large throwing blades from a scroll and flung them with expert precision. They soared through the air, aimed for Naruto's head and chest. Just like the sword, they slowed to a crawl just before impact, hanging in the air as if caught in invisible amber before clattering uselessly to the ground. Kakashi whispered that direct attacks were useless, his analytical mind struggling to find a rational explanation. He noted it was not a barrier, there was no chakra flare. It was as if the space around Naruto was warped. Zabuza reached the same conclusion and, snarling, decided to flood the forest. He slammed his palm on the surface of the lake and unleashed water release, great waterfall technique. The lake's surface erupted. A colossal wall of water as wide as the clearing and towering high, surged upward before crashing down on Team 7's position. It was a force of nature that could not be dodged or blocked by conventional means. Kakashi shouted Naruto's name and reached to pull Sakura and Tazuna away, bracing for an impact that should have been deadly. Naruto stood his ground, watching the tsunami approach. He slowly raised his right hand, index finger pointed at the heart of the watery onslaught. A pinprick of crimson light appeared at his fingertip, pulsing and swelling into a crimson orb the size of his fist, radiating intense pressure. He used curse technique reversal, red, and instead of throwing it, he flicked the orb. The tiny red sphere shot forward and met the multi-ton wall of water. For a split second the world went silent. A wave of repulsive force erupted from the point of contact. The great waterfall did not simply part or get pushed back. The technique dispersed into steam, boiling into a cloud that hissed and blanketed the clearing in hot fog. Zabuza stared, his tactical mind reeling. This was neither an eye technique nor a standard ninja technique. He realized Naruto did not just possess power, he seemed to break the rules of the world. With no direct way to touch him, Zabuza melted into the steam cloud, his voice echoing from all directions as he warned that Naruto's friends were vulnerable. From the mist, 5 perfect water clones formed. They spread out instead of all charging Naruto. 1 went for Kakashi, 2 for Sasuke, and 2 more for Tazuna and Sakura. Kakashi intercepted his target, their kunai clashing with a sharp screech. Sasuke unleashed a fireball. 1 clone dodged while another forced through the flames and delivered a heavy kick that sent Sasuke reeling. Naruto watched with a patient sigh, as if swatting away pests. He raised his left hand, palm open, and activated curse technique lapse, blue. An invisible field of gravitational force radiated from him. The water clones attacking his teammates were ripped off their feet and yanked violently toward Naruto. Zabuza, anchored in the mist, felt the pull and drove his blade into the ground to hold his position. The 5 clones hurtled together and slammed at him. Naruto clenched his fist and the attractive force collapsed inward. The water constructs were forced into the same point and burst apart in a towering spray of water, sending a geyser high into the air. Naruto called into the mist that the fight was getting boring. The fog swirled, condensing not around Zabuza but into 4 massive, coiling dragons of water, their eyes glowing with compressed chakra. The real Zabuza stood on the lake's surface behind them, chakra flaring as he pushed himself to the absolute limit. He admitted that Naruto was a monster but insisted even a monster could be overwhelmed, and he launched a coordinated assault with the dragons from all angles. Naruto slowly removed his blndfld. The world seemed to hold its breath as Kakashi and Sasuke were transfixed by the overwhelming presence in Naruto's revealed eyes. The six eyes appeared, two pools of celestial blue that seemed to perceive everything at once. Naruto formed a simple hand sign and activated domain expansion, unlimited void. The sound of the roaring dragons vanished. Sensations of ground and air dissolved. A perfect black sphere erupted from Naruto's position and expanded to engulf the dragons and Zabuza. For Zabuza, reality broke apart. In its place, an endless flood of perception poured over him. He felt countless moments and details at once, an overwhelming torrent of information and sensation that left him rigid and unable to act. He became paralyzed, trapped at the center of an infinite awareness. After a span that felt both eternal and instantaneous, the black sphere shattered and the world snapped back. The water dragons collapsed into inert water that splashed onto the ground. Zabuza fell to his knees, vacant and unresponsive, his mind shattered by the experience. Naruto walked calmly toward the catatonic figure, a kunai in his hand and the intent to prevent further harm. Suddenly, two thin needles flew from the trees and struck Zabuza in the neck. He collapsed as if lifeless. A masked figure in Hunterine attire landed beside the body and thanked them, claiming to have been tracking Zabuza for a long time and to have landed the final blow. Naruto's six eyes saw through the disguise, revealing the girl beneath and faint signs of life in Zabuza's form. He recognized the hunter's claim as a lie but did not pursue it. The diversion was over. He gave a small shrug as the Hunterine picked up the body and vanished in a flicker of mist. Kakashi suggested they go to Tazuna's house, his voice strained and uneasy. He looked at the white-haired boy casually putting his BGMI back on as if finishing a light warm-up, and began to call Naruto's name, trailing off as the moment settled over them all. 6. A demon's bargain. The walk to Tazuna's home was a silent, tense affair. Kakashi kept glancing at the blindfolded boy who had just displayed an unbelievable power. Sasuke simmered with a mix of awe and bitter jealousy, and Sakura tried to comprehend the scale of the force they had witnessed. Their arrival brought a brief relief. A kind-faced woman with dark hair greeted them at the door, welcoming Tazuna and then asking who the visitors were. Tazuna replied that he was glad to see her and explained that the newcomers were ninja from the Leaf Village he had hired to protect him. The woman, Tsunami, bowed deeply and thanked them for protecting her father, noting that he could be stubborn. Kakashi introduced himself as Kakashi and identified the three as his students, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. Naruto pulled his BGMI down and offered a bright compliment to Tsunami, saying she was very beautiful, which brought a faint blush to her cheeks. Tazuna immediately warned Naruto to keep his hands off his daughter. Naruto turned slowly toward the old man and gave a cold, quiet retort that made the room fall still. Tazuna froze at the memory of the boy's earlier demonstration of power, swallowed, and chose silence. Their tense moment was broken when a small boy named Inari ran into the room, hugged Tazuna's leg, and then glared at the strangers before bursting into tears and running away. Inari had cried that they should give up because Gojo was too strong and would kill them. Naruto observed that Gojo had likely killed someone close to Inari. Tsunami's face grew sad as she told them that Kaiza, the town's hero and Inari's adoptive father, had been publicly executed by Gojo for defying him, and that loss had shattered the boy's hope and the town's will to resist. That night, after a quiet dinner, Kakashi confronted Naruto in their shared room and insisted on answers about Naruto's abilities. Naruto told their teacher that the techniques were a clan secret and refused to explain. He said that clans protect their methods, the Uchiha their Sharingan, the Hyuga their Byakugan, and that as an Uzumaki he was protecting his own. Kakashi recognized the firmness of Naruto's refusal and the respect for tradition beneath it, and he let the matter go for the moment. The next morning, during breakfast, Sasuke asked their teacher how he had a Sharingan. Kakashi recounted the story of his fallen comrade, Obito Uchiha. Sasuke then asked Naruto where his powers came from, but Naruto ignored him and continued eating, which only irritated Sasuke further. Naruto then shifted the conversation to their upcoming encounter with Zabuza, suggesting they consider the hunt from a different angle. He pointed out that the hunter ninja had struck pressure points with small needles intended to incapacitate rather than kill, and that the accomplice had carried the body away instead of leaving it behind. Naruto reasoned that such behavior suggested Zabuza might still be alive. Kakashi's remaining eye widened as he put the pieces together and confirmed that Zabuza was likely alive and recovering, giving them about a week before he could return. Tazuna paled at the implication. Sasuke, regaining some confidence, argued that now that they had seen Zabuza's movements they could defeat him, but Kakashi countered that Zabuza had also seen a glimpse of Naruto's abilities and would come prepared for something dangerous. Kakashi emphasized the need to grow stronger quickly and announced a training regimen focused on chakra control, beginning with tree climbing exercises. Naruto stood and said he was leaving. Kakashi insisted that the exercise was vital, but Naruto simply demonstrated his control by walking up a wall and across the ceiling before dropping lightly back to the floor. Kakashi stared, speechless, while Sasuke's jaw tightened. Naruto then left, and Kakashi sent his clone to supervise the others. Over the following days, Sasuke struggled and fumed while Sakura, with excellent innate chakra control, mastered the exercises quickly. Naruto used the time to explore the land of waves. The town's cheerful surface gave way to poverty and fear, starving children, listless adults, and thuggish men wearing Gojo's insignia. A quiet resolve grew in Naruto as he vowed to bring Gojo to justice for what he had done. Deep in the forest, Naruto encountered a gentle-looking young hunter ninja with long dark hair picking herbs. She startled at his greeting but composed herself quickly. Naruto offered to help, introduced himself as Naruto Gojo, and asked her name. She answered that her name was Haku and that she was gathering herbs for someone precious to her. Haku explained that when someone protects something truly precious, they can become as strong as they need to be. Naruto countered that strength was necessary to protect others and oneself. Without it, everything was vulnerable. Haku seemed surprised by his bluntness, and they agreed to disagree. When their baskets were full and Haku prepared to leave, Naruto reached out and lightly placed a hand on her shoulder as she turned. The touch was brief, almost gentle, and an invisible Hiratian seal was now permanently marked on Haku's cloak. He added casually that she should say hello to Zabuza. Haku froze, wide-eyed with terror, and then fled into the woods. A few days later Naruto decided it was time. While his teammates trained, he closed his eyes, focused on the seal, and vanished in a silent yellow flash. He reappeared in a dark, damp hideout where Zabuza lay on a cot, heavily bandaged, and Haku stood at his side. Naruto made it clear that he had come to make a deal. Zabuza growled and reached for his blade, assuming Naruto had returned to finish the job. Naruto denied that and proposed an alliance. They would take Gojo down and seize his money, with Naruto guaranteeing Zabuza a larger share than originally promised. When Zabuza asked what would happen if he refused, Naruto warned that he would kill them both immediately if necessary. Zabuza laughed bitterly and accepted the necessity of the plan, assuming that Kakashi was unaware of it. Naruto confirmed that Kakashi had no clue and said that after this was over Zabuza could return to the hidden mist. Zabuza protested that he was a wanted man who would be executed by the Mizukage, but Naruto said coldly that the old Mizukage was dead and the village had a new leader, Meitarumi, who would welcome him if Naruto sent word. Zabuza realized with dawning horror that Naruto had killed Yagura. Naruto confirmed it succinctly. He then explained the rest of the plan. Gojo was greedy and cowardly and had never intended to pay them. Naruto's reconnaissance had revealed that Gojo planned to bring his thugs to the bridge to eliminate everyone when they were weakened, and he also planned to send men to Tazuna's house to seize Tsunami. Zabuza's anger flared and he vowed revenge, but Naruto interrupted to say he had already promised someone close to him that Gojo would be stopped. Haku, listening in stunned silence, asked about that person. Naruto explained that the relationship was not official and hinted that he had other personal ties, and Haku showed a brief, quiet disappointment before the conversation moved on. Naruto outlined the plan in practical terms. Zabuza and Haku were to create long-lasting, durable clones and put on a convincing show on the bridge the next day, fight Team 7 and weaken them so that when Gojo arrived with his forces, the true operation could begin. Zabuza and Haku agreed, and Naruto departed. By the end of the week Sakura and Sasuke had a better understanding of chakra enhancement, and Team 7 was finally ready for the confrontation. Zabuza prepared as well. Naruto created a clone to watch over Inari and Tsunami, and he chose to observe his team from a distance during the coming fight. Later, on the approach to the bridge, Kakashi walked with Sasuke and Sakura and Tazuna following behind. They found the bridge workers either unconscious or unable to move. Tazuna asked fearfully what had happened, and a dense mist rolled in. Sakura recognized the technique and informed Kakashi that it was Zabuza's hidden mist jutsu. Zabuza announced himself with a taunt aimed at Kakashi, and then 7 water clones of Zabuza appeared around the group. Sasuke grinned, excitement showing in his posture, and Kakashi indicated that Sasuke should take the lead. In a split second, Sasuke slashed through the water clones and they dissolved back into water. Zabuza noted that Haku had a rival and Haku acknowledged it. Sasuke and Haku stepped forward to engage. Sasuke drew a kunai and Haku drew a sunbon. Their weapons clashed as they charged. Sasuke repeatedly tried to find an opening, but Haku matched his speed and guarded effectively. Haku then offered a warning. They were only after the bridge builder and would not fight if Team 7 backed off. Sasuke ignored the warning and continued to seek an opening. Haku pointed out that they were at a disadvantage surrounded by water and with one of Sasuke's hands effectively blocked. She moved through a rapid series of hand signs using only her free hand and activated a secret jutsu, summoning thousands of water droplets that quickly hardened into needles. The needles surged toward Sasuke, but he avoided them by channeling chakra into his feet and leaping clear. While airborne, he threw 4 shuriken, forcing Haku to backflip. Sasuke reappeared behind her with a confident posture and pressed his attack. Sasuke charged again with his kunai. Haku blocked with her forearm and attempted to sweep his legs with a needle, but Sasuke responded with a kick that struck Haku and sent her tumbling back toward Zabuza. Zabuza watched in shock as the young fighters demonstrated unexpected ferocity. Kakashi observed that bringing these young ninjas into the fray had only brought out Sasuke's aggressive edge, remarked on Sakura's sharp mind, and named Naruto as the village's most unpredictable element. Zabuza urged Haku to keep up the fight before they became the victims. Haku rose and a purplish-blue light shimmered around her. She stepped forward toward Sasuke and, with a quiet apology that it had come to this, activated another secret technique, crystal ice mirrors. Mirrors of ice formed around Sasuke and Haku. Haku stepped into one, disappearing within it and reappearing as an image that projected across the other mirrors. Kakashi moved to assist Sasuke, but Zabuza blocked his path and declared that Kakashi's fight was with him, claiming the boy did not stand a chance against Haku. Zabuza added that there was a secret, Haku's skill could surpass his own. Zabuza declared that Sasuke was doomed, speaking with a cruel satisfaction. Haku told Sasuke that he would show him what speed really was. The mirrors glowed and needles began flying at Sasuke from all directions. Sasuke was struck and his kunai was knocked from his hand, flying out of the mirror dome. Sakura and Kakashi both called out to Sasuke. Zabuza threatened that if Kakashi tried to help, he would kill the other two in a heartbeat. Sakura picked up the kunai and ran toward the mirror dome, flinging it toward Sasuke. Before it could reach him, Haku appeared from one of the mirrors and intercepted it. Suddenly a shuriken flew through the air and struck Haku's mask, cracking it. Everyone turned to see where it had come from. Back at Tazuna's house, Tsunami called for Inari to help in the kitchen. Inari, who had been upstairs, replied that he would be there in a minute. The front door was suddenly forced open by 2 bandits who appeared in the hall. Tsunami screamed as they shoved her, and Inari ran down the stairs to see what was happening. Inari cried out for his mother. Tsunami told him to get away. One bandit ordered them not to move and asked whether they should take the boy hostage. The taller bandit with an eye patch and elaborate topknot carried himself with a threatening air, showing tattoos and scars across his left side. He wore a loose kimono that left his upper body exposed and carried a long sword. His partner, a light-skinned man with bluish-white hair and black eyes, wore a dark purple hat and a blue jacket with many pockets and a katana at his waist. Clone Naruto watched from a tree to see how Inari would react. The taller bandit, named Gojo, insisted on taking only one hostage. The other bandit made a cutting jest about Inari. Tsunami begged them not to hurt him, offering to do anything and threatening she would kill herself if they harmed the boy. The bandits traded remarks and left the room, and Inari began to cry, feeling helpless. Inari remembered something Naruto had told him: he should stop being a coward. Thinking of his family and his grandfather, he resolved to be strong. He charged out, yelling for them to let go of his mother and flailing his arms. The bandits prepared to strike. Tsunami tried to stop them, but was struck from behind and fell unconscious. The bandits appeared to slash at Inari, and for a moment it looked as though he had been split apart. When they looked back, they found a log cut into 3 pieces instead of the boy. One of the bandits recognized a substitution and realized they had been tricked. Clone Naruto leapt in, intercepted the bandits, and rescued Tsunami, who had regained consciousness and blushed slightly. The clone praised Inari for his distraction and said that the hero always arrived at the last minute. Inari, startled, asked if it was Naruto. The clone smiled and said that he preferred to be called Dad. The bandits charged at the clone with swords drawn. The clone threw 2 shuriken marked with his signature, which the bandits deflected, taunting that it would take more than that. The clone teleported and retrieved the shuriken instantly, then moved with precise techniques to disarm and incapacitate the attackers without graphic harm. Inari was praised for his bravery, and though he began to cry again, the clone placed a hand on his shoulder and told him it was all right to cry if he was happy. They went back inside the house together. On the bridge, Naruto decided to help Sasuke. He threw a shuriken that struck Haku's mask and announced his arrival, calling out his name loudly. Kakashi looked relieved to see Naruto and instructed him to provide backup for Sasuke. Naruto teleported to Sasuke and asked him what he knew about Haku's jutsu. Sasuke explained that Haku used mirrors to move at super speed and that although he appeared to be everywhere, he was actually moving from one place to another. Naruto asked whether Sasuke had tried fire jutsu. Sasuke admitted he had and that they had not worked. Naruto attempted his own jutsu, unleashing a large fireball that struck a mirror, but the flames subsided without effect. Naruto then decided to use the shadow clone technique and created multiple clones, 1 for each mirror, totaling 15. He asked Sasuke whether he had managed to activate his Sharingan. Sasuke said he was close but had not yet activated it. Naruto instructed Sasuke to watch the battle and try to anticipate Haku's movements. Once his Sharingan activated, they would attack together. He commanded all his clones to charge and attack the mirrors. Sasuke watched closely and saw Haku moving from mirror to mirror. He observed the clones being destroyed one after another, and then his eyes widened when he saw Haku throw 5 needles aimed at Naruto's vital points. The battle intensified in a flurry of fast, stylized maneuvers as Naruto and Sasuke adjusted to Haku's speed. Sasuke charged forward and pushed Naruto out of the way, taking the needles himself as his Sharingan finally activated. Naruto was surprised. He had never considered Sasuke a friend and had assumed the feeling was mutual. Naruto asked why Sasuke had done it, clearly taken aback. Sasuke growled that he did not know why and had simply acted on instinct, admitting that he had hated Naruto and always found him a nuisance. Naruto protested that he had not asked to be saved and asked again why Sasuke had intervened. Sasuke said weakly that his body had acted on its own, then collapsed against Naruto. With blood at his mouth, Sasuke made one request. He told Naruto that, having been left alone and having known suffering, Naruto would understand, and he begged Naruto, as a fellow shinobi and teammate who might be the only one to understand him, to kill his brother, the one who had destroyed his clan and made him cold and uncaring. Naruto forced a smile and said he understood how Sasuke felt and would honor the request. Sasuke thanked him and closed his eyes. After Sasuke fell unconscious, Haku emerged from the mirror and addressed Naruto. The Haku clone asked whether they would fight or simply wait for Gojo to appear. Naruto replied that there was no need to fight, they only needed to dispel the clone, and if Kakashi questioned them, he would say Haku had escaped. The clone then dispelled. Naruto told Kurama that they might as well give Kakashi a scare and released some of Kurama's chakra. Meanwhile, Kakashi sensed the Nine-Tails' power and feared Naruto had lost control. He prepared to act, drawing a scroll, touching it to his jacket, performing hand signs, and slamming it to activate a summoning, Earth-style, Fang Pursuit Jutsu. Markings spread across the ground towards Abusa. and from them spectral hounds sprang up and restrained him, holding him fast. Kakashi noted that they had him. Kakashi formed hand signs and activated his original jutsu, Lightning Blade. He vowed not to let Zabuza kill Tazuna, praising Tazuna's bravery and his work to help the village recover, and declared he would not allow Zabuza to destroy the bridge and the villagers' dreams. Zabuza retorted that he had his own dreams and did not care. Kakashi replied that to have dreams one needed a future and declared Zabuza's future to be finished before charging. He drove his lightning blade into the clone of Zabuza, striking decisively and ending the threat. Kakashi said goodbye to Zabuza Momochi solemnly. Naruto approached the group. Sakura, seeing Naruto's expression, feared the worst and ran to Sasuke's side, crying over his body and believing him dead. Within a few minutes, Sasuke stirred and sat up, rasping that it was hard to breathe with Sakura leaning on him. Sakura hugged him tighter before letting him sit up, and Sasuke asked where Naruto was. Back with Kakashi, a short, portly man clapped and announced that he had finally seen Zabuza dead. Kakashi asked who he was. The man identified himself as Gojo and indicated the 100 or so men around him as his personal warriors. Naruto, already in his first-tailed form and shifting toward the next, reacted in a feral surge of energy and claimed Gojo as his target. Kakashi realized that stopping Naruto was near impossible. He was almost out of chakra and stiffly nodded. Naruto grinned and began to move forward. Gojo retreated behind his men and ordered them to get Naruto. The men charged. Naruto dropped to all fours and moved in a red blur, striking the attackers with overwhelming speed and precision. He incapacitated many of them in rapid succession and neutralized the threat until the field was cleared. With the attackers defeated, Naruto strode calmly toward Gojo. Gojo pleaded for his life and offered anything Naruto wanted. Naruto, in his feral state, demanded all of Gojo's money. Gojo gave the location of his safe and the combination. Naruto confirmed the transaction and then turned his attention back to Gojo. Gojo realized he could not escape and cried out as Naruto struck him, breaking his arm and causing him sharp pain. Naruto then incapacitated Gojo further, leaving him unable to stand. Naruto told Gojo that this was for all the hurt he had caused, and then delivered a final, decisive blow that killed Gojo. He whispered that it was for his son Inari. Naruto withdrew his hands and walked back to Kakashi, who gave him a look of understanding laced with worry and a hint of fear. Naruto reassured Kakashi that it was him, not the Nine Tails, and he relaxed his chakra. He turned to Inari standing with the villagers behind him. Inari, half surprised and half joking while still shaken by the destruction, told Naruto that a hero showing up at the last minute had left them little to work with. Naruto reminded Tazuna that he had told him to call him dad, and Tazuna glared angrily. Naruto then contacted his clone through a mind link and ordered the clone to tell Zabuza and Haku where Gojo's money was hidden. That night, Naruto met up with Zabuza and Haku. They split the money, and before they parted, Haku offered a brief, grateful gesture to Naruto. Naruto returned to Tazuna's house and gave Tsunami a sealed scroll containing the money, with plans to come back and unseal it later. A week passed and the bridge was finished. Team 7 prepared to return to the Leaf Village. Before they left, Inari asked them to come back soon, and Naruto promised he would visit. Naruto gave Tsunami a respectful farewell and moved away. Tazuna scowled, and Kakashi chuckled lightly. Sakura was surprised to learn that Naruto had formed a close relationship in the Land of Waves, while Sasuke remained indifferent. Tsunami thanked Naruto for everything he had done, and Naruto accepted her gratitude. As they left, the villagers asked about the bridge's name. Tazuna smiled and announced that they would call it the Great Naruto Bridge. Tsunami smiled and remarked that the name should stand as a beacon of strength for years to come, much like Naruto had been for the village. Back in the Leaf Village, Team 7 returned and Kakashi reported the mission to the Hokage. Kakashi omitted details about Naruto's clan techniques and the use of the Nine Tails chakra, intending to discuss those matters privately with the Hokage. After hearing the report, the Hokage dismissed Team 7. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura left the Hokage's office while Kakashi stayed behind to speak with Hiruzen. Kakashi explained to the Hokage that Naruto had unusual curse techniques, such as Red and Infinite Void, that he had defeated Zabuza, and that he had used the Nine Tails chakra. Hiruzen expressed concern at the power a young person could possess and said that the one who had trained Naruto must be very strong. Kakashi noted that Naruto had declined to explain his abilities, saying it was a clan secret and that it seemed Naruto knew about his clan. Hiruzen hoped Naruto would not become an enemy of the Hidden Leaf and asked Kakashi to keep a close watch and report anything suspicious. Kakashi also mentioned, almost offhand, that Naruto had formed a close relationship in the Land of Waves, then used the body flicker technique to leave. Hiruzen chuckled at the notion of Naruto having a relationship, then sighed and returned to his paperwork. Naruto went back to the house in the Forest of Death and told Tsum and Anko about the mission in the Land of Waves. After Team 7's last mission, the Hokage granted them 4 days off. Naruto used a teleportation technique to visit Mei Terumi, a close ally and friend from the Bloodline Wars, and he also checked on Haku and Tsunami. He spent the rest of his time off with Kurama, Anko, and Tsum. Naruto had met Mei during the Bloodline Wars, aided her forces against Yagura, and they had formed a strong bond over time. Training resumed and they completed about 10 D-rank missions while the Chunin exams approached. Kakashi gathered his students one morning on a small bridge and told them he was proud of how far they had come. He recommended all 3 for the Chunin exams and instructed them to submit their applications in room 301 at the academy the next day, then left with a quick body flicker. Sasuke walked away and Sakura followed, trying to press for a date despite Sasuke's indifference. Naruto decided to get some ramen at Ichiraku. On his way, he heard Konohamaru yelling and went to investigate. He found a tense scene, a blonde girl with 4 pigtails who carried a battle fan and a boy in a black, baggy outfit who had been holding Konohamaru by his scarf. Temari warned her brother to put Konohamaru down to avoid trouble. Kankuro replied that they had time and wanted to have some fun. Naruto stepped forward and, with a hint of mockery, suggested they listen to Temari. Surprised by Naruto's boldness, Temari flushed slightly while Kankuro snarled. Kankuro moved as if to strike Konohamaru, but Naruto intervened in an instant, pinning Kankuro with a kunai that held him in check. Naruto made it clear that Kankuro was not better than those he bullied. Kankuro released Konohamaru, who moved away quickly, and Naruto stepped back. Kankuro then unwound part of the cloth that had been wrapped around him like bandages. Temari asked what he was doing. Temari asked with a slight worry whether Kankuro was going to use the crow for this. A bored voice from nowhere told Kankuro that he was an embarrassment to their village. The owner of the voice materialized in a swirl of sand in front of his comrades. Gaara stepped into view. Kankuro flinched at the sight of Gaara. Gaara then turned to face Naruto. Gaara wore a black full-body suit with t-shirt-style sleeves and 3/4-length legs, a white cloth draped over his right shoulder and the left side of his hips, and a wide leather strap system across his left shoulder and right hip that supported a large gourd secured with his forehead protector. His eyes were a bluish-green rimmed by dark circles. Kurama observed that this boy was the vessel of the one-tailed beast, Shika. Naruto wondered whether he knew the boy. Kurama replied that he did not know the boy personally but recognized the tailed beast inside him and said the beast was similar to Naruto. Gaara bowed deeply and apologized for his brother. Naruto accepted the apology and asked why Shikaku had come to the leaf. Temari and Kankuro widened their eyes at the question. Gaara's face tensed and he clutched his head in sudden pain. Kurama explained that the seal on the vessel had not been done properly and that Shikaku was tormenting his host. Kurama warned that if the tailed beast did not stop tormenting its host, Kurama would emerge to intervene. Naruto grinned and told Gaara to warn his tenant to stop tormenting him, or Kurama would step in. Gaara's screams subsided. He raised his head, panting slightly, and thanked Naruto with another bow. Then Gaara shifted and, releasing a chilling intensity to intimidate Naruto, swore that if they met in battle he would kill him. Naruto met that intensity with an even stronger response and said he was looking forward to it. As Gaara and his siblings began to leave, Naruto asked their names. Temari quickly introduced herself, pointed out Kankuro, and said that the other was Gaara. Naruto nodded and introduced himself as Naruto Uzumaki Gojo. He told Gaara that he empathized with his pain and wanted to help, but warned plainly that Gaara must not hurt any of his friends or Naruto would show little mercy. Gaara replied that they would see. They all walked off while Naruto, distracted, forgot about ramen and headed home. Naruto thought that the Chunin exams would be interesting and asked Kurama about his own desire to help. Kurama asked why Naruto wanted to help. Naruto explained that he had seen suffering in Gaara's eyes and recognized how being shunned could shape someone into what Gaara had become. He reflected that, without the support he had received from people like his father, Anko, and Tsum, he might have ended up the same way. If he could help Gaara, even as just one person, it might be enough to prevent him from descending into despair. Kurama admired Naruto's resolve. The next day Naruto met up with Sasuke and Sakura on the walk to the academy and they went together. On the second floor they found Rock Lee in green training clothes apparently being held by two guards. Naruto immediately suspected Lee was pretending to be weak. Tenten stood nearby in her pink sleeveless blouse and dark green pants, her hair in two buns, talking to the guards. As Tenten approached, a guard swung at her. Naruto moved instantly and blocked the punch aimed at her, reproaching the guard that it was not right to strike a woman. Those around them were surprised at how fast Naruto had been. Sasuke walked up with Sakura close behind and accused the guards of using a genjutsu, calling it pathetic. One guard asked if Sasuke had seen through the illusion and charged. Sasuke began to counter, but Lee stepped between them and stopped the confrontation with his hands, displaying obvious chakra in his arms that registered to Sasuke as an unusual energy. Neji approached and questioned Lee about revealing his true strength when he had claimed they should hide it. Lee trailed off, looked toward Sakura, and blushed. Lee introduced himself as Rock Lee and, in an earnest and somewhat awkward way, asked Sakura if she would be his girlfriend and vowed to protect her. Sakura firmly refused, calling him a weirdo. Lee looked crestfallen. Naruto laughed quietly at the exchange. Neji then turned his attention to Sasuke and inquired about his name. Sasuke pointed out that it was common courtesy to give one's own name before asking others. Neji pressed, asking Sasuke how old he was, but Sasuke declined to answer. Sakura urged Naruto and Sasuke to move on to the examination room, and as they started off Lee called out to Sasuke, challenging him to a fight there and then. Lee said he wanted to test the famed Uchiha clan and see if the stories were true, offering Sasuke as his opponent and repeating his affection for Sakura. Sakura rejected Lee again, bluntly saying she would never love someone like him and criticizing his appearance. Sasuke inwardly wondered why Lee was so taken with Sakura and what he could possibly see in her. Naruto hoped that someone would give Sasuke a good beating. Sasuke taunted the challenger, reminding him that the Uchiha clan was not to be taken lightly and suggesting the challenger might be crazier than he looked. Lee accepted the challenge without hesitation. Lee privately planned to draw Sasuke out to learn his technique and to prove himself to his sensei, Might Guy. Sasuke agreed to fight. The match began. Lee launched into a flurry of rapid strikes that sent Sasuke flying backward. Sasuke recovered and activated his Sharingan to try to read Lee's movements, but Lee explained through his actions that his techniques were taijutsu, pure hand-to-hand combat. The Sharingan could see the motions, but it could not make the body move faster than it could. Lee used the shadow of the dancing leaf to set up a finishing move, but a large turtle intervened and stopped him. The turtle rebuked Lee for attempting a forbidden technique, and Team 7 assumed the turtle was Lee's instructor. Might Guy then appeared atop the turtle, gave Lee a light but firm reprimand that knocked him aside, embraced him, and wept with pride. Team 7 stood in stunned silence. Sasuke could not believe he had been outmatched by someone he perceived as odd. Guy asked after his eternal rival Kakashi and mentioned that their match record stood at 50 wins to 49, boasting that he was faster and stronger than Kakashi. When Guy departed, Lee admitted that he was not the strongest genin on his team. Neji Hyuga held that title. Naruto teased Sasuke about Lee's intense training, and the group refocused on the upcoming Chunin exams. After the fight, Team 7 and Lee headed to room 301 for the first phase of the Chunin exams. Kiba greeted them on arrival. Ino approached and hugged Sasuke from behind, which brought a flustered reaction from Sakura. Shikamaru's familiar bored voice arrived with Choji beside him, casually snacking. Naruto greeted Shikamaru with surprise at seeing him there, and Shikamaru replied that Asuma had made them attend. Kiba and Ino pointed out Naruto to the others. A boy with gray hair tied in a ponytail, circular glasses, and a dark purple outfit introduced himself as Kabuto Yakushi and offered to help the rookies. Sasuke identified himself and the others accepted Kabuto's offer. Kabuto explained who had come to the exams and shared his own streak of failed attempts. He showed his information cards to the group. Sasuke requested details on Gaara of the Desert, Rock Lee, and Naruto Uzumaki. Kabuto's cards listed Gaara's teammates as Temari and Kankuro, his siblings. The records showed Gaara had completed several lower-rank missions and a higher-rank mission without sustaining injury, and he had a reputation for having been unharmed in past contests. Rock Lee's card identified Niji Hyuga and Tenten as his teammates with Might Guy as their sensei. It noted that Lee's taijutsu had improved dramatically over the past year while his other skills remained limited, and it listed the ranks of missions he had completed. Naruto's card recorded many lower-rank missions and one higher-rank mission, noted a very large chakra capacity and solid mid-chunin to low jonin level skill in ninjutsu, basic genjutsu, lower-level taijutsu, minimal kenjutsu, and it confirmed his ability to use the shadow clone jutsu. The room reacted in surprise to the details about Naruto. Naruto and Shikamaru grew suspicious of Kabuto because he seemed to possess classified information that only a high-ranking official would normally have access to. Kabuto observed that the exams had attracted attention from many villages, including a small, less-noticed one. Naruto introduced himself as Naruto Uzumaki and declared his intent to defeat every opponent. 2 genin from the Sound Village took offense at the remark and prepared to teach him a lesson. One of the Sound genin had spiky dark hair and a distinctive outfit. The other wore bandages over much of his face and carried a straw raincoat over his shoulders. The Sound team suddenly moved to attack. One threw a kunai at Kabuto, who dodged. The bandaged genin swung with a gauntlet and narrowly missed Kabuto. Kabuto's glasses were broken in the exchange. He then staggered and clutched his stomach in obvious pain, appearing hurt but not severely injured. Naruto and Sakura rushed to check on Kabuto. One of the Sound genin announced that their team would all become Chunin by the end of the exam and told Kabuto to note that in his records. A large cloud of smoke exploded into the room, and as it cleared about 16 Leaf Ninja emerged from the haze. The large man in the center wore a sadistic grin and introduced himself as Ibiki Marino, the first proctor of the Chunin exams, and he warned their worst nightmare. He announced that there would be no unauthorized fighting during the exam, explicitly including the genin from the Sound. Ibiki's imposing figure was complemented by a face marked with old scars. His forehead protector cloth covered his head and a long dark blue cloak hung from his shoulders. A nervous genin who looked wrapped in bandages apologized and explained that it was their first time. Ibiki glared at the genin but continued with the instructions. He told the participants to each take a piece of paper from one of the Chunins standing behind him. The number on the paper would indicate where they were to sit. The genin stepped forward, took their number, and found their seats in the modified classroom. Once everyone was seated, Ibiki announced that the first part of the Chunin exams would be a written test. Murmurs rose around the room but were quickly silenced by Ibiki's stare. He then wrote the rules on the chalkboard while speaking. Ibiki explained that the test used a point deduction system. Everyone began with a perfect score of 10 points, and wrong answers would reduce that total. He added that any student caught cheating would lose 2 points, and being caught cheating 5 times would result in failure. The sentinels positioned to their sides were there to monitor them. Anyone caught cheating did not belong in the exams. He went on to say that teams would be scored together, and if one member received a 0, the whole team would fail. The 10th question would be given 45 minutes from that moment. Sakura visibly paled and began to worry that Naruto might receive a 0, still doubting his intelligence. The exam began and everyone started reading the questions. Many quickly realized they did not know the answers and decided to try to cheat. Various methods were used across the room: specialty eyes, animals, mirrors, and even jutsu. Naruto used his 6 eyes to copy answers and thought that all he had to do was sit back and wait. As Naruto prepared to relax, a kunai streaked across the room and struck the desk of the person behind him. The genin near the sound asked what had happened. A chunin who had thrown the kunai declared that 5 strikes would result in failure and that the guilty party had just failed the test. The shocked genin could not believe it. The trend of swift failures continued and many teams were eliminated, about 15 in total, by the time the moment for the 10th question approached. Kankuro returned to the room just as Ibiki was preparing to present the 10th question. Ibiki noted Kankuro's arrival and remarked dryly about the nature break. Kankuro walked back to his seat looking nervous and dropped a small rolled scroll near Temari. Ibiki reminded the candidates of the stakes and the rules for the 10th question. He explained that each person could choose not to take the question, but refusal would result in a 0 and failure for the entire team. Those who chose to answer the 10th question but answered it incorrectly would be barred from taking the chunin exams forever. Some candidates voiced objections about the harshness, and Ibiki said he had the authority now. If they were not confident, they could skip it and try again next year. He then instructed anyone who did not want to take the 10th question to raise their hand so their number could be recorded and they could leave. After a while, the person next to Naruto announced that he was out and apologized to his teammates. Other candidates followed and quit. Sakura watched Naruto and worried he would not raise his hand because of his stubbornness. She began to raise her own hand to prevent him from making a reckless choice, but Naruto saw this and realized she did not know he had the answers. He acted decisively and raised his hand first. Then he slammed his hand down, stood up, and declared that he did not quit or run, that he did not care if he remained a genin forever, and that he would still become the strongest man. Afterward he sat down, relieved that his display had dissuaded Sakura from quitting. Ibiki reminded them that the decision could change their lives and that anyone who wanted to quit had one last chance. Naruto responded with confidence that he never went back on his word, that it was his way as a ninja. Ibiki observed that Naruto's outburst had strengthened the resolve of others. More candidates stayed than he had expected. The chunin exchanged nods, and Ibiki, admiring their determination, announced that all who remained had passed the first exam. Sakura asked where the 10th question was. Ibiki explained that there had not been a written 10th question. The decision to stay and face the unknown had been the answer. Temari questioned whether the 9 earlier questions had been a waste of time. Ibiki replied that they had a crucial purpose. The first 9 questions had tested their ability to gather strategic intelligence under adverse circumstances. He then prepared to explain further. Ibiki explained that his objective had been to test how well they functioned as part of a team, which was why the exam scored them as squads. Everything they did or failed to do would affect their teammates. He said he wanted to see how they coped with pressure. The first 9 questions on the test had been deliberately difficult, too difficult for any genin to solve on their own, and many of them had quickly realized they needed to cheat to have any chance of passing. The exam was designed to encourage that choice. It almost demanded it. That was why he had 2 chunin disguised to sit among them. Those who were caught cheating had failed. Better not to cheat than to cheat clumsily, he warned. Ibiki emphasized that information was a battlefield weapon. How well one gathered it could be the difference between failure and success. There would be times when they would have to risk their lives to obtain it. He removed his forehead protector, revealing a face marked by old, severe scars, and the candidates exchanged silent glances at the sight. Sasuke murmured, noting the scars and imagining what Ibiki must have endured. Ibiki reminded them always to consider the source of their information. Intelligence gathered from the enemy was not necessarily accurate. Disinformation could be worse than none at all, potentially costing comrades or a village. That was why he had placed them in a position where they had to gather accurate intelligence, even if it meant cheating to survive, and why those who were not up to the task had been weeded out. Temari admitted she still did not understand the point of the 10th question. Ibiki corrected her, saying the 10th question had been the whole point of the exam. When Sakura asked for an explanation regardless, Ibiki obliged. He said the purpose had been to test them as a squad, not merely as individuals. The final question had given them 2 difficult options: play it safe and accept failure, or take a risk and possibly remain genin forever. It had been a no-win situation, the sort of dilemma chunin faced every day. He offered a hypothetical: a mission to retrieve a sacred document while the enemy expected them and the number of guards was unknown. Could they refuse the mission to live another day? Of course not, he said. Many Chunin missions might seem almost suicidal when considered closely, but leaders did not dwell on that. They focused on accomplishing the mission with courage and discipline. Those were the qualities required of a Chunin squad leader. Those who chose the safer path, who would falter and put comrades at risk for their own safety, would never be Chunin while he was around. He concluded by telling them the rest had answered the 10 questions successfully and had earned the right to continue. They had passed through the first gate, and he declared that part of the Chunin selection exams completed. He then wished them good luck. A moment later, 2 kunai attached to a cloth embedded in the roof and a person dropped through the opening. The newcomer had light brown eyes with an unusual, pupil-less appearance and violet hair tied into a short, somewhat spiky ponytail. She wore a tan overcoat over a fitted mesh suit that reached from her neck to her thighs, a dark orange miniskirt with an appendage-like sash connected to a dark blue belt, a leaf forehead protector, a pendant shaped like a fong on a thick cord, a wristwatch, and shin guards. Anko Mitarashi announced that this was not the time to be celebrating and introduced herself as the next proctor. Ibiki remarked that she was early as usual. Anko flushed with embarrassment, looked around, and then criticized Ibiki for letting so many candidates pass, suggesting his test had been too easy and that he was getting soft. Ibiki suggested the candidates might simply be stronger this year. Anko responded that, in her hands, more than half of them would be eliminated. Sakura reacted fearfully to that assessment. Anko predicted it would be fun and told the candidates to go home. She said she would tell their squad leaders where and when to meet her for the second exam, then dismissed them. All the Chunin candidates left. Later, at Naruto's house, Naruto asked whether Anko would be the proctor for the second phase and what the test would involve. Anko refused to reveal the details, saying she would tell them the next day with the rest of the group. Naruto asked again for an answer right then, but Anko declined. The next day, the genin stood before a forest surrounded by 3-meter-high metal gates secured with heaps of locks and warning signs. Kiba admired the place and asked what it was. Anko explained that it was the site of the second stage of the exam, the 44th Battle Training Zone known as the Forest of Death. Sakura admitted the location made her uneasy. Anko smiled and said they would soon understand why it had that name. Kiba scoffed and mocked Anko's attempt at intimidation, calling her bluff and daring her to do her worst. Anko accepted the challenge, then tossed a kunai that left a superficial scratch on Kiba's cheek. She then moved behind him and warned that the cocky ones tended to be the first to fall. Before beginning the test, Anko had everyone sign a standard consent form stating that the leaf and she would not be held accountable if they died during the exam. Without such an agreement, she would be responsible. She laughed as she explained the formalities. Anko described the exercise. The test was a survival trial through the battle zone. Each candidate would enter through one of 44 entrances and make their way to the center, where a locked tower awaited. Anko explained that to pass the test, each team needed to obtain a pair of scrolls, one heaven and one earth, and arrive at the tower together. Sasuke asked if both scrolls were required. Anko responded that half of the teams would go after the heaven scroll while the others pursued the earth scroll, and warned that teams must never open either scroll. The genin signed the forms, and Anko assigned them to gates. All the genin gathered at their gates and waited for the 3 o'clock signal. 10 seconds remained. Anko announced the start, and when the gates opened, all the teams rushed in. 5 minutes into the challenge, screams came from outside the forest. Anko observed that the fun had begun and admitted she felt sorry for the other participants, believing they did not stand a chance against Naruto. Naruto told his teammates that he would ambush a team while Sasuke and Sakura headed for the tower. Sasuke questioned why they should follow him, and Sakura wondered what he could accomplish alone. Naruto shifted into his tailless fox form and asserted that he could get the scroll, that he was stronger than both of them, and that he would keep his word. Sasuke grumbled but acknowledged that Naruto was capable. Sasuke warned that if Naruto died he would bring him back and kill him again for causing their failure. Naruto replied that the same threat applied to Sasuke, since he could not avenge anyone if he were dead. With that, Sasuke and Sakura left. Using his enhanced sense of smell and a surge of chakra, Naruto tracked the sand team and found them setting traps. One ninja looped wire among the trees and branches, another planted diversionary paper bombs, and a lookout kept watch. Naruto silently subdued the lookout so no sound would be made. He then threw a three-pronged kunai some distance from the others and moved with a burst of speed to appear between the two remaining sand ninja. In a swift, anime-style exchange, he struck the first with a gust-enhanced blade, sending him into a tree and rendering him unconscious, and used a fire technique to force the second to react. Naruto appeared behind the second and landed a quick disabling blow that left him out cold. He searched and found the Earth Scroll, pocketed it, and set off to rejoin his team. Sasuke and Sakura moved through the trees toward the tower when Sasuke sensed they were being followed. He signaled to Sakura, who understood immediately. They set a few wire traps designed to launch kunai if disturbed, then resumed their pace. When they were about 500 meters from the tower, an explosive-tagged kunai landed nearby. They leapt clear before it detonated and turned to see its source. A grass ninja wearing a straw hat stood there, meeting Sasuke's gaze and delivering a chilling taunt about prey and predator. The grass ninja's intense killing intent paralyzed Sasuke and Sakura with fear. Orochimaru used that moment to mark Sasuke with a curse. After receiving the mark, Sasuke fell unconscious. Orochimaru observed that Naruto's teammate was on his way and then vanished. Sakura, shaken, looked to see who had been there. Halfway back to his team, Naruto felt a dark presence and narrowly avoided a slash from a sword that was oddly wielded by a long tongue. He moved to avoid a follow-up strike and took in his opponent. The grass ninja swallowed the sword and emitted a cold killing intent, which Naruto met with his own. Naruto demanded to know what had been done to his team and why the ninja smelled of snake. The ninja explained that he had given Sasuke a mark that would grant the power he sought and identified himself as Orochimaru, warning Naruto that he would need to remember that name. Orochimaru advised Naruto to return to his team before the sound ninja arrived and then dissolved into mud, leaving Naruto behind. Naruto told himself he had to get to his comrades and immediately ran. Naruto arrived to find a chaotic scene. Sasuke and Lee lay unconscious, Sakura was badly injured, Choji stood bruised but on his feet, and Ino had been rendered unconscious and was being supported by Shikamaru, who appeared relatively unhurt. The clearing was devastated, tree branches broken from heavy impacts. From a branch above, Naruto demanded to know what had happened. A bandaged sound ninja sneered that the leaf shinobi were like cockroaches, saying that slamming one down only brought more. Naruto vowed that his comrades would be avenged and shifted into his tailless form. He surged forward and overwhelmed the sound ninja in a rapid, high-energy confrontation typical of their world. The ninja was exhausted and decisively defeated in short order. Other genin watched and wondered if that was truly Naruto. Naruto paused just before delivering a final strike. Sasuke rose up surrounded by a purple chakra with strange marks covering half of his body. Sasuke asked calmly who had done this to Sakura. One of the sound ninja boasted that they had done it and that Sasuke would suffer the same fate. The ninja standing next to Naruto cried out for Zaku to wait. Zaku unleashed a slicing sound wave, blasting air from his palms towards Sasuke, Sakura, and Lee. When the dust cleared, they were nowhere to be seen. Zaku told Dosu there was nothing to worry about, but Sasuke suddenly appeared behind him and struck him with his forearm, sending him into Naruto. Naruto responded with quick kunai strikes and a kick, sending the attacker away. Sasuke then reappeared and pinned him with his foot while securing his arms. Sasuke remarked that Zaku seemed proud of his arms as he manipulated them into an uncomfortable position. Zaku cried out in pain as his arms were forced. Sasuke noted that Zaku appeared to be the only one left and moved toward Dosu. Sakura clung to Sasuke from behind, begging him to stop. Sasuke turned to her, and the marks on his body began to recede. Dosu, wincing in pain, admitted they were outmatched and offered to trade their scrolls for mercy. Naruto told them to keep the scrolls but warned that when they met Orochimaru again he would make them pay for what he had done, releasing a surge of intense intent. Dosu accepted and warned that next time they would not run but would fight, then picked up his teammates and left. After they departed, an awkward silence fell over the group. Naruto cheerfully asked Choji for food, joking that he was starving, and everyone stared at how quickly his mood could switch from serious to playful. Naruto explained that he had run across half the forest to get there. Choji tossed him a packet of chips, which Naruto devoured in seconds before offering the last chip back to Choji, who accepted happily. Ino went to check on Sakura while Tenten shook Lee awake. Ino asked Sakura what was going on with Naruto. Sakura explained that Naruto had changed a lot since the academy. The old playful part remained, but sometimes he became completely serious, and even then he was no match for Sasuke. Ino stored that information and scolded Sakura for clinging to Sasuke. Sasuke teased Sakura in return, suggesting she was jealous. Shikamaru and Choji sat with Naruto, watching him curiously until Naruto asked what was happening. Choji asked what the serious moment had been about, and Naruto feigned ignorance. Shikamaru asked when Naruto had become so serious. Naruto smiled and said that he disliked anyone who harmed his comrades. Choji accepted the answer while Shikamaru wondered about the change. Niji, who had activated his Byakugan upon arriving, observed traces of purple chakra on the Uchiha and red on the Uzumaki. Both auras looked ominous. Niji found it interesting and then jumped down to Lee and Tenten. Eventually the Leaf Ninja filtered out in groups of 3 until only Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto remained. Naruto informed them that they needed to get to the tower because Sakura required medical attention, and he picked her up. Sasuke nodded, Sakura helped him to his feet, and they headed for the tower. On the way, Sakura told Naruto how Orochimaru had ambushed them, how Sasuke had been bitten, and how she had tried to fight off the Sound Ninja until Lee and Team 10 arrived. Naruto told Sakura that if she did not train she would become a burden to the team. Sakura started to retort, but Naruto's serious tone stopped her. Naruto added that Sasuke would take more notice of her if she became stronger. They reached the tower without trouble and entered. A scroll with writing hung on the wall, and Sakura read aloud the inscription about seeking higher qualities through wisdom and training the body, and how when heaven and earth are balanced, the perilous path becomes righteous. The inscription suggested that this secret way could guide them from this place. Sasuke pointed out that a word seemed to be missing from the inscription, and Sakura suggested that they open the scrolls. Naruto and Sasuke each opened a scroll. Smoke burst forth and as it cleared, a familiar man stood revealed. Sasuke recognized him, and Iruka greeted them with a warm smile. Naruto asked Iruka what he was doing there. Iruka explained that he was there to welcome them back and to congratulate them on passing the second phase of the Chunin exams. He explained that the second exam had tested survival and the integrity of the ninja to resist the temptation to read classified documents, in this case the scrolls. After offering his congratulations, Iruka bid them farewell and they entered the tower's inner area. Naruto learned that Kiba's team and Gaara's team had already arrived. With 2 days remaining before the exams concluded, Naruto decided to spar with his clones. He placed Sakura in the designated medical ward for care, then found the arena designed with a massive set of hands forming a seal and a viewing platform completely empty. He created clones and began his training. After 2 hours of practice, Naruto decided he had trained enough and was about to leave when Gaara approached. Gaara addressed Naruto in a monotonous tone. Naruto inclined his head in acknowledgement and gestured toward the floor beside him, offering Gaara a seat, but Gaara declined. Gaara explained that when Naruto had mentioned the word friends, Gaara had not understood it and had hoped Naruto might understand his pain. Naruto asked why his having friends would make Gaara think he could not understand that pain. Gaara replied that those with friends could not understand him, because he lived only for himself and to prove his existence. His loneliness was the force that made him who he was. Gaara said he had been born in loneliness. He recalled coming into the world after causing the death of the woman he would have called his mother, and how people had feared what he carried inside him. He remembered thinking he could trust others in his naivety, but his father had disproved that belief with repeated attempts on his life. Gaara said his father had sent him to his uncle when he could not kill him, and Gaara had hoped he might finally have someone to rely on. He then described the day his uncle had been ordered to kill him. Despite being attacked, his uncle later told him he could have refused the order. Gaara said he realized then that he had no one. He added that his uncle had expressed hatred for him and had given up his life in a final attempt to end him. Gaara finished speaking with quiet resignation. Naruto looked into Gaara's eyes and thought he saw anguish there. Gaara asked why Naruto fought, directed to Uzumaki. Naruto explained that he fought to protect those important to him and recalled that someone close had once told him that having someone to fight for made a person truly strong. Gaara confessed that he did not understand. Relying on others, he said, could make one weak and vulnerable to death. Naruto promised to make Gaara understand, insisting that he had suffered as well and had found another path to strength he wanted to show him. Gaara called Naruto a fool but declared that if Naruto could prove his way was better he would consider change. If not, Gaara warned he would crush Naruto and drench his sand in revenge. Gaara then walked off. Kabuto and his team met with Orochimaru before the next stage of the exams, and Kabuto gave Orochimaru the intelligence he had gathered on Sasuke. 2 days later, the second phase of the exams concluded. The teams that had advanced were Team 7, Team 8, Team 10, Guy's team, the Sound team, the Sand team, and Kabuto's team. The teams assembled in the arena where Naruto had been practicing, with the Hokage standing before the Genin and their Jounin behind him. The Hokage explained that the Chunin exams served to test ninja, to moderate the levels of ninja across nations, and to foster bonds among them. When the Hokage finished, Gaara asked for the details of the next exam, confident he could handle whatever was thrown at him. Hate then stepped forward, bowed to the Hokage, and asked for permission to speak. He explained that a preliminary round would be necessary because there were too many participants and important nobles and feudal lords would be attending. They wanted to show only the best shinobi. Hayate announced that the preliminaries would begin immediately and that anyone not in top physical condition should quit now. Kabuto withdrew, but the others remained. Sakura begged Sasuke to withdraw, unable to bear watching, but Sasuke told her that he fought to test himself and that all the best were present. Naruto interjected that Sakura only cared for Sasuke and did not need to be treated harshly. Sasuke then told Naruto that he was one of the people he most wanted to face, and Naruto returned a challenging smile. Hayate outlined the preliminaries as sudden death, one-on-one elimination matches with only the winner advancing to the third exam. He explained that there were practically no rules. Competitors would fight until one conceded, was rendered incapable of continuing, or, in the worst case, died. He added that those who found themselves losing were encouraged to quit to avoid fatal outcomes and that, as proctor, he would intervene if a situation seemed hopeless to preserve lives. Enko issued a command and a panel on the back wall opened to reveal a screen. Hayate said the panel would display the names of 2 competitors chosen at random. The screen cycled through names and then displayed the first matchup, Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Akato. Hayate instructed everyone whose name had not appeared to move to the upper level. Kakashi walked past Sasuke and warned him not to use his Sharingan. He cautioned that if the curse seal took over he would have to step in and stop the match. Sasuke reacted with concern at the possibility of being prevented from fighting. Hayate confirmed both fighters were ready and announced the start of the preliminaries. Sasuke leapt back and drew a kunai. Yoroi held his hand before his body and gathered chakra around it. Yoroi threw 3 shuriken at Sasuke. Sasuke deflected them with his kunai and winced from the strain of the exchange. Sasuke realized that the thing was responding to his chakra as he raised his hand toward his curse seal. Yoroi charged at him, declaring that Sasuke belonged to him. Sasuke swept his leg and locked Yoroi's arm between his legs. He smirked, thinking he had him captured, but Yoroi turned his hand and grabbed Sasuke's collar. Sasuke felt suddenly weak. Yoroi tried to strike his solar plexus, but Sasuke released his hold and slid away. Yoroi leapt up, grabbed Sasuke by the head, and pushed him to the ground. Sasuke wondered what his chakra was doing. Yoroi laughed that Sasuke was only now noticing. Sasuke reflected on how weak he felt compared to others: Zabuza, Naruto, the Grass Village Shinobi, Haku, Itachi, and questioned why he was so weak. Naruto's taunt echoed in his mind, suggesting that if Sasuke could not beat this opponent, how could he ever confront his brother? The memory ignited a fire in Sasuke. He resolved not to lose. Sasuke coiled his legs and pushed Yoroi off. Spotting Lee nearby, he charged. He flipped onto one hand and delivered a powerful super kick that sent Yoroi into the air. Using the dancing leaf shadow, he reappeared behind Yoroi midair. He acknowledged inwardly that he had borrowed the move and then relied on his own skill. He feinted a kick to the ribs, used the momentum to swing his arm up and strike Yoroi's neck, sending him tumbling. Sasuke declared he was not finished, kicked Yoroi down, and finished with an axe kick he called Lion's Barrage, smashing Yoroi onto the floor. Hayate surveyed them and announced Sasuke Uchiha as the winner. Kakashi appeared and told Sasuke they needed to seal the mark. When Sasuke asked if they could wait until after the matches, Kakashi refused, gave his usual half-smile, and then his body flickered as he and Sasuke departed. The board then called the next bout, Shino Aburame vs Sakuabumi. In a dim room lit only by candles, Sasuke sat shirtless in the center of a large sealing array. Kakashi explained that the seal he was about to place would close the curse mark but that its strength depended on Sasuke's will. Kakashi performed numerous hand signs and carried out the curse sealing technique. Sasuke cried out as characters crawled across the floor and his skin and entered the curse mark, forming a ring around it. When the sealing finished, Sasuke lost consciousness. Back in the arena, Shino warned in a flat, stoic tone that if Zuka fought he would not be able to recover and should forfeit. Zuka scoffed, noting a twitch of movement in one arm as he removed it from its sling and aimed at Shino. He boasted that one good arm was all he needed and charged. Zaku attempted a straight punch, but Shino raised an arm and blocked it, insisting Zaku could not win. Zaku then tried a wind-based slicing technique, producing a gust from the hole in his palm that blasted Shino away. Orochimaru appeared from behind a pillar and remarked that the Sound Village belonged to him. Kakashi demanded what Orochimaru wanted with Sasuke. Orochimaru observed that Kakashi had gained the Sharingan in his left eye since they last met, admitted that he envied such fortune, and said he desired that power for himself, hinting at the value of Uchiha abilities. Shino calmly rose and told Zaku to look behind him. When Ze turned, he found heaps of insects converging. Shino explained that Zaku was trapped. Using his one working arm to attack Shino would leave him vulnerable to the insects. Attacking the insects would leave him open to Shino. Shino began to gather chakra while forming a hand sign. Zaku then discovered movement in his other arm and tried to use both, pointing one arm at Shino and one at the insects and attempting his wind technique. Nothing emerged from his wind holes, and both of his arms were suddenly disabled and rendered unusable. Zaku cried out in pain. Shino revealed that he had anticipated trickery and had plugged both of Zaku's wind holes in advance, noting that while one ace in the hole is useful, two are better. Shino moved behind Zaku and struck him, sending him sprawling and nearly unconscious. Hayate checked Zaku and announced Shino Aburame as the winner. Orochimaru stepped forward towards Sasuke, and Kakashi ignited a lightning blade in response. Kakashi warned that if Orochimaru advanced, one of them would die there and swore he would kill Orochimaru before he touched Sasuke, regardless of Orochimaru's reputation. Orochimaru laughed and told Kakashi that he was brave but foolish. Orochimaru told them that he would leave for now, but warned that Sasuke was an avenger who would one day come looking for power. He then paused and added that unless they followed through on their threat against him, he would not be so easily placated, his voice carrying a hint of menace. Kakashi felt terrified but kept his lightning blade active to conceal his fear. Orochimaru laughed and walked away until he disappeared from sight. Kakashi wondered in fear if one of them would die there and felt he must have been out of his mind. He used the body flicker technique and appeared behind Naruto and Sakura. Sakura greeted Kakashi and asked after Sasuke. Kakashi replied that Sasuke was fine but suggested they should be more concerned about themselves, then pointed toward the match board, which displayed Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. The two female ninjas began fighting instantly, though at first neither landed a decisive blow. Niji wondered if that was the best female ninja skill could offer, but Tenten observed that their restraint had nothing to do with gender and everything to do with holding back. Sakura, unwilling to accept Ino's pity and frustrated that Ino was pulling her punches, insulted her rival. A memory surfaced of Ino teaching Sakura about the significance of flowers in an arrangement. Ino used the cosmos flower as an example and explained how thorough word complemented it. Sakura asked if that meant she existed only to complement Ino's beauty. Ino denied this, calling Sakura a bud waiting to bloom. Another memory showed Sakura telling Ino that when she chose to wear her forehead protector properly, she would become a true shinobi. After trading insults, Sakura placed her forehead protector on her forehead, and Ino did the same. As true rivals, they rushed at one another and finally took the battle seriously. Sakura and Ino continued exchanging blows without either gaining the upper hand, and both began to run low on energy. Sakura berated Ino for seeming more focused on appearance than on her skills, and in a desperate moment Ino cut her hair and tossed it aside. Ino then attempted a risky mind transfer technique to force Sakura to forfeit, despite the danger that it could leave her immobile if it failed. Sakura narrowly avoided the initial attempt and appeared to have won, but strands of Ino's cut hair had been infused with energy to form a binding rope, trapping Sakura. Ino revealed that she had pretended to miss on purpose to lead Sakura into the trap and used the mind transfer again, this time gaining control of Sakura's body. With control secured, Ino tried to make Sakura forfeit the match. Naruto shouted for Sakura not to give up, prompting Sakura's inner resolve to surge and force Ino out of her mind. Although confused, Ino lacked the energy to press the attack. Kakashi noted that Ino's lack of energy had been a factor in Sakura's small victory and also recognized Sakura's strong will. The two charged at one another to exchange final blows, resulting in a simultaneous knockout. Judge Hayate decided that neither of them would advance to the next round. Kankuro easily won his battle against Misumi by tricking him into attacking Karasu, Kankuro's puppet. In retaliation, Karasu delivered a decisive blow that left Misumi incapacitated, though he remained alive thanks to his ability to contort his body. The preliminaries moved on to the next bouts. Shikamaru attempted the shadow imitation technique, but Kin evaded and threw several bell-equipped needles at him. Shikamaru recognized the trick and mocked her for relying on such basic tactics. Kin then rang the bells on her needles to initiate an illusion technique, and Shikamaru was caught in the illusion and unable to move while Kin pressed the attack with more needles. However, when Kin tried to strike again, she suddenly found herself unable to move. Shikamaru had extended his shadow technique through the shadow of the wires she was holding. He then threw a throwing star at Kin, which she imitated. When Shikamaru ducked back to evade, Kin, forced to mirror his movement, struck the wall and knocked herself out. Kiba joked to his companion Akamaru that they had been paired against the lowest-seeded opponent and felt lucky. Akamaru barked in agreement. Announcer Hayate called for the next match, Kiba Inuzuka vs Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto playfully told Kiba not to take it personally if he was knocked away. Kiba thought that was exactly what he intended to say, though less politely, and Akamaru barked again. Kurenai expressed doubt about Naruto's chances, claiming Kiba would win, but Kakashi dismissed that as talk and proposed a bet. If Naruto won, Kurenai would agree to a friendly outing with him. If Kiba won, Kurenai would give up a distracting hobby for a year and come early to all her meetings. They both agreed to the wager. Kakashi privately thought that Kiba did not stand a chance against Naruto and wondered how much Naruto had improved since becoming a junior ninja. Kiba wondered the same, uncertain of Naruto's growth. Hayate signaled for the match to begin. Naruto chatted about what to get for lunch, dango or ramen, and turned his back on Kiba. Kiba leapt at him, using the tunneling Fang technique and spinning. Naruto dodged, and Kiba's attack struck the ground, creating a dust cloud. When the dust settled, Naruto was sitting on Kiba's back. Kiba spun to strike, but Naruto grabbed his arm and tossed him aside. Kiba quickly recovered and resumed the assault with a kick, which Naruto avoided, then a punch that missed as well. Naruto then moved behind Kiba to show off to the crowd and struck him with a powerful blow that sent Kiba flying. Kiba survived the impact and, though reluctant to admit it, acknowledged that Naruto had grown stronger. Kiba decided it was time to use his ultimate move. He signaled to Akamaru that they would perform the human-beast combination transformation into a double-headed wolf. Akamaru barked and moved to Kiba as they completed the transformation and struck with their wolf Fang over Fang, shattering the ground and creating a powerful shockwave. Kiba believed the attack had landed, but when the dust settled he saw that Naruto stood unharmed. Naruto's defensive ability had absorbed the blow. The attack had drained a great deal of Kiba's chakra, leaving him exhausted. Naruto moved with sudden speed, appeared behind Kiba, and delivered a precise strike to the neck that knocked Kiba unconscious. Hayate declared Naruto the winner. Everyone stared in surprise. Many wondered when Naruto had become so formidable, while Gaara watched, turning Naruto's earlier words over in his head. The Leaf villagers glared with mixed emotions. Kurenai could hardly believe what she had just seen. Kakashi reminded Kurenai of their bet that she would go on a date with Naruto. Medics came to carry Kiba away and Hayate announced a short break. After the break, Hayate called the next match. The board displayed the names Neji Hyuga versus Hinata Hyuga. Neji walked out with a purposeful stride. Hinata came forward timidly. Neji told Hinata that he had never expected they would have to fight one another. Hinata answered that she had not expected it either. Naruto, watching them, raised an eyebrow and asked whether they were brother and sister. Kakashi explained to Naruto that both belonged to the Hyuga clan and were technically members of the same extended family. Sakura remarked that it must be difficult for them. Rock Lee added background about bad blood between the main and branch houses. The branch family, which included Neji, held resentment toward the main family, which included Hinata. Neji was regarded as the clan's genius, while Hinata had been treated as a failure and, as a branch member, was placed under the main family's control. Neji then launched into a harsh assessment of Hinata's past and character, insisting that she could never change and that she had been hiding her true feelings behind gestures and nervous habits. Neji accused Hinata of remembering a bitter past and giving up when she looked up at him. Hinata responded that she wanted to see if she could change. Neji dismissed her, saying people could not change, while Kiba and Shino voiced their belief in Hinata and encouraged her. Neji noted that Hinata's resolve had hardened and then attacked. Hinata formed hand seals and activated her special white eye technique, taking a defensive stance and asking Neji to be ready. Neji mirrored the stance and Hayate announced the start of the fourth match. Neji charged and fired an open palm strike. Hinata met it with a palm move that sent visible chakra through both their hands. The exchange continued until Hinata landed a hit to Neji's stomach. Kakashi lifted his headband to observe, impressed by what he saw. Neji grabbed Hinata's sleeve and revealed a series of angry red seals along her arm. Hinata realized with a dawning horror that Neji had sealed the chakra points in her arms so she could no longer use her gentle fist technique. Neji commanded her to give up, telling her that as a pampered member of the main branch she was too gentle to be a shinobi and that her nature prevented her from becoming hard and unsympathetic. Hinata spoke softly that she had been suffering, but suggested that Neji had suffered even more. In response, Neji's expression hardened and he launched two powerful palm strikes, one to her torso and one to her face. Hinata was struck and staggered to the ground, clearly injured and unable to continue effectively. Hayate was about to call the match when Neji lunged forward with intent to press the advantage. Leaf high-ranking ninja and Hayate intervened, forming a line to protect Hinata. Might Guy reminded Neji that he had promised not to let the main branch feud dictate his actions. Medics were summoned at once to attend to Hinata. Kiba, having recovered some strength, leapt down to confront Neji, but Shino released a swarm of insects that formed a barrier and blocked Kiba's charge. Kiba vowed revenge, but Neji scoffed and walked away. As Neji left the arena, Naruto stepped forward and confronted him, forcefully declaring that belittling and crushing another person's self-esteem out of spite was childish. Naruto vowed that if they met in battle during the mid-level ninja exams, he would prove that people could change and that being labeled a genius did not make someone superior to others. Naruto then walked away before Neji could reply. The next match paired Temari against Tenten. Tenten initiated the fight, but Temari easily dodged the attack. Team Guy was surprised that none of Tenten's weapons could land a hit on Temari. Tenten launched another assault that Temari repelled with a gust of wind from her giant folding fan and warned that if all 3 stars on the fan were revealed, the match would be over. Tenten used her twin rising dragons technique and revealed the second star. Temari repelled that attack as well. Tenten then used strings to release more weapons and exposed the third star, but Temari countered once more and trapped Tenten inside a cyclone. When Tenten fell from the cyclone, Temari positioned her to land on the fan and rendered her unconscious. After Temari was declared the winner, she attempted to toss Ten onto the scattered weapons, but Rock Lee descended and caught Ten before she could be harmed. Lee then rushed Temari, only to be restrained by Might Guy, who warned the Sand Ninja not to underestimate Lee. After a long wait, Rock Lee was matched to face Gaara. Lee began the fight with taijutsu, but Gaara's sand blocked his attacks. To counter the sand's speed, Guy allowed Lee to remove his leg weights. Freed from the weights, Lee's speed increased and he managed to land hits, but Gaara's body was coated in sand. Opening the first of the 8 gates, Lee launched Gaara into the air with several kicks. Catching him with his bandages, Lee used the front lotus, only to find that the target had been a sand clone. Gaara reappeared and resumed the fight. Lee, weakened from the front lotus, quickly recovered and opened the second gate. He then opened the third gate, a display that even unnerved Gaara. Guy and Niji recalled Lee's past training and his determination to become a respectable ninja through taijutsu alone. Lee's speed soon outpaced Gaara's shield. Opening the fifth gate, Lee unleashed his most powerful attack, the reverse lotus. Gaara survived by softening his fall with sand and then used sand to immobilize Lee's left arm and leg. As Gaara moved to finish the fight, Guy jumped in to protect his student. Though unconscious from the strain, Lee rose again, driven by his desire to win. Guy was moved to tears by Lee's dedication, and Lee was carried away to recover. The medical team later reported that Lee's injuries were severe enough to prevent a full recovery and that he would never be able to fight as a ninja again. Guy regretted having taught such dangerous techniques and stepped away from the ring before the final match. Choji assumed his human bullet tank would protect him from Dosu's sound technique, but Dosu's attack landed and defeated him in a single blow. All the genin who had advanced to the finals then returned. The Hokage announced that the final matches would take place in a month to allow time for preparation and for important dignitaries to arrive. To determine the pairings, each competitor drew a number. The resulting matchups were: first, Naruto vs Niji; second, Gaara vs Sasuke; third, Kankuro vs Shino; fourth, Temari vs Dosu, and the winner of the fourth match would face Shikamaru in the fifth. The Hokage told them to use the month to plan, rest, and recover, and then adjourned the meeting until the following month. Elsewhere, Kabuto prepared to kidnap Sasuke under Orochimaru's orders but was intercepted by Kakashi and forced to retreat. After the announcement, Naruto left and wandered the village. He came upon a commotion at the hot springs where a man had caused trouble near the baths. Naruto intervened, which caused the man to stumble and the bathgoers to flee in alarm. The man accused Naruto of damaging his research. He was tall with waist-length, spiky white hair tied back into a ponytail, red lines that ran down from his eyes, and a forehead protector bearing the kanji for oil. He had a wart on the right side of his nose and wore a green short-sleeved kimono and matching pants with mesh armor visible at the sleeves and legs. His outfit included handguards, a simple black belt, wooden sandals, a red cloak with 2 yellow circles, and a large scroll on his back. A swirl-like tattoo marked his left palm. Naruto recognized the man as Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto brusquely dismissed him and walked away. Jiraiya called after the boy to ask what he had meant by mentioning a man who smelled like snakes. Naruto, in passing, said the name Orochimaru and left. Jiraiya, intrigued, asked the boy who he was. Naruto gave his name. Jiraiya introduced himself as Jiraiya, a sage of Mount Myaboku and one of the legendary 3 Sannin. The women from the baths, upset by the disturbance, ran out and chased him away. Jiraiya watched Naruto go with surprise, then went to speak with Hiruzen about the boy. Hiruzen informed him that Naruto had recently defeated a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, a revelation that surprised Jiraiya. That night at Kikyo Castle, Dosu attempted a desperate assault on Gaara in order to secure a match with Sasuke in the finals, but Gaara's sudden transformation overwhelmed Dosu and the attack ended with Dosu's death. Baki and Kabuto observed the scene and later discussed plans to attack the Leaf Village. Hayate Gecko overheard their conversation and tried to leave to notify the 3rd Hokage, but Baki caught him and killed him before he could escape. Hayate's body was later found by a group of covert operatives, and Yugao Yuzuki wondered aloud what had happened. Next day, Sakura sat in her bedroom worried about Sasuke. Meanwhile, the third village leader held a meeting with the high-ranking ninja about Hayate Gecko's body found near Kikyo Castle. They discussed possible involvement by Orochimaru, although the leader concluded that they had no concrete information. He also told the shinobi that he trusted them to assemble and defend the village if the Hidden Sound Village and the Hidden Sand Village attempted an invasion. Later, Sakura went to Yamanaka Flowers to buy flowers for Sasuke, where Ino was running the shop. After deducing Sakura's reason, Ino decided to visit Sasuke as well. Ino picked a rose and Sakura picked 2 daffodils, one for Sasuke and the other for Rock Lee. On their way they heard Choji eating loudly. Peeking through an open window, they spotted Asuma Sarutobi and Shikamaru sitting with Choji. Asuma had been treating Choji to barbecue in exchange for training with Shikamaru every day. In the woods, Niji trained with Tenten, and during training Niji collapsed after overexerting himself. Team Kurenai trained nearby to prepare for Shino's match. Elsewhere, the 3 Sand siblings and Baki quietly discussed their invasion plans. At the hospital, the nurse allowed Ino and Sakura only 5 minutes of visitation because of Sasuke's condition. However, Sasuke and his clothes were missing. Kakashi was undergoing the cliff climbing practice and, after nearly falling, activated the first gate. He used the surge of strength to reach the top of the rock, where Sasuke was waiting. Back at the hospital, Lee was also missing from his bed. Sakura spotted Lee outside performing push-ups and remembered Ino telling her that Lee's injuries had been severe enough that he might never be a shinobi again. After completing 199 out of 200 push-ups, Lee collapsed. He later woke in his hospital bed and noticed a daffodil, realizing that someone had come to visit. Next day, Naruto decided to visit Lee at the hospital and met Shikamaru on his way. Shikamaru handed Naruto a fruit basket originally intended for Choji, who had been hospitalized for indigestion after overeating. Sakura went to Lee's room and replaced the flower. As Choji complained of his hunger, Ino entered with a fruit basket for him. Gaara entered Lee's room and attempted to kill him while he was unconscious, but Naruto and Shikamaru stopped him. Incapacitated by Shikamaru's shadow imitation technique, Gaara revealed part of his past. The one-tailed beast Shikaku was sealed within him from birth, and he had been created as a weapon for his village. When he became too unpredictable, his father sent assassins after him regularly to remove the threat. Gaara admitted that he had failed at the purpose he had been given and feared he could only hurt others. Naruto, who also had a tailed beast sealed within him, sympathized. Gaara tried to kill them, but Guy stepped in and ordered Gaara to leave at once. Gaara departed, promising to kill them all before he went. After Gaara left, Naruto told Lee to get better soon and then went for a walk around the village. He came across Kurenai, who reminded him about the bet with Kakashi. Naruto said it was fine and that she did not have to go out with him, but when she insisted that a bet was a bet, he accepted. Kurenai told him to meet her at her house later. Time skip. Naruto stood outside Kurenai's house, holding a small bouquet. Kurenai checked herself in the mirror, satisfied with her dress but uncertain where he might take her. She opened the door and took in every detail about him. She found him unexpectedly handsome. Kurenai invited Naruto to go with her, and he offered his hand to guide her. She appreciated his gentle gesture. He led her to a restaurant that looked fancy and asked for the table he had reserved. The waiter gave him a disdainful look but led them to a table where they sat across from each other. Kurenai asked for fruit juice, her voice soft but with a quiet intensity in her eyes. The waiter said he would be with them shortly and left. Naruto noticed Kurenai's thoughtful expression and asked if there was something she disliked about him. Kurenai explained that she was thinking about ways to improve her genjutsu and that, although she was skilled, there was still room to refine the technique's density to ensure it could fully immobilize a subject during training. She asked if she could use it on him to test it, giving him a pleading look that made him hesitate but ultimately agree to help her practice. A short, pleasant pause followed as they waited for their drinks. Kurenai agreed and gave him a somewhat surprised, cute smile at being caught off guard by the question. She performed a few hand seals. Naruto felt the chair beneath him shift, and the surroundings folded into a vivid jungle vision where the chair had become a bed of writhing snakes. Kurenai remained seated calmly, unchanged in demeanor. Her appearance in the illusion seemed altered in an arresting way that held his attention, and he found himself completely absorbed by the genjutsu. Kurenai observed him closely and felt a quiet admiration for how distinctive he seemed. She allowed herself a brief, private thought that he stood out from others, then reminded herself to keep the exercise professional. The genjutsu altered and shifted, but nothing inappropriate happened, and the scene returned to a more ordinary setting. Naruto tried to remain composed, keeping a small, polite smile. The genjutsu snapped off, and Kurenai watched him with a softened, pleased expression. Kurenai noted inwardly that he had tried not to stare and found that thoughtful and kind. Kurenai moved closer and breathed in his scent out of simple curiosity. She reached out and gently stroked the back of his hand, feeling how warm it was, a quiet, human gesture to bridge the moment. Kurenai then spoke his name, and Naruto felt a flutter of nervousness. They moved closer, and their faces met in a brief, tender moment that expressed mutual affection more than anything else. The contact was sweet and shy, leaving both a little flushed and surprised by the depth of their feelings. Elsewhere that evening, Jiraiya walked toward the restaurant, glad to have found a place where he could sit without being thrown out for his usual forward joking. He saw a sign about a sake contest and stepped inside, taking a seat at the bar and ordering a drink. Snippets of conversation caught his attention, including an irritated waiter and a villager who had noticed the young man and the woman together. Jiraiya turned to see the couple and realized the young man who was kissing the woman had white hair mingling with the woman's black hair. The realization that his godson had been showing affection with Kurenai Yuhi startled him so much that the cup of sake slipped from his hands and fell. After waiting too long for their food, the couple decided to leave. They reappeared in front of Kurenai's home, and Kurenai, still slightly flushed from their earlier moment, invited Naruto inside and mentioned she had some snacks if he was hungry. Naruto accepted. Kurenai opened the sliding door and gestured for him to enter first, maintaining her role as a polite hostess. Naruto stepped inside and took in the cozy, well-arranged interior, appreciating how comfortable the space felt while knowing it was not a place for him to stay permanently. Kurenai called from a nearby room for him to take a seat, her voice sounding oddly distant as if coming from another part of the house. Naruto turned and looked at her, noticing the details of her dress and the calm way she carried herself. Somehow he had not really taken notice of it all before, only glancing at her once to see if she looked presentable. He chose a comfortable sofa and made sure it would suit him. Kurenai stood next to a cabinet filled with bottles and asked if he would like something to drink. Naruto declined, saying he was not much of a drinking person, and Kurenai gave him a look that made her preference clear. She suggested that a small taste would not hurt. Naruto accepted the glass of orange liquid, thought it tasted good, and addressed her by name. Kurenai took a glass as well and sat down next to him, watching him with a slight apprehension as if she were contemplating something. Kurenai asked if he had ever had a relationship with a girl. Naruto explained his life to Kurenai, and when he decided it was time to head home he asked if she had enjoyed the evening. Kurenai nodded and said she had enjoyed the date. Naruto smiled and asked if she would be his girlfriend. They agreed to be a couple. Kurenai escorted him to the front door and let him out. As he disappeared into the streets of Konohagakure, Kurenai whispered that she was grateful to Kakashi for making that bet. 1 month later, Naruto decided not to train for the month and spent the time with the girls. He visited the hidden mist village to invite Mei and Haku. Chunin Exam Stadium, on top of the arena. Hiruzen thought it was finally time for the finale. The Kazekage and Mizukage arrived with their escorts, and Hiruzen invited them to be seated. The Kazekage thanked him for the invitation, while Orochimaru, watching from afar, thought to himself that he would have to deal with them both. Mei had come to see her partner. Zabuza sat angry at the memory of losing to Naruto, and Haku laughed and teased Zabuza about it. Hiruzen noted in thought that Zabuza had been pardoned. Orochimaru observed that Naruto would have made an ideal vessel if he did not host the Nine Tails. In the stands, spectators looked around. Ino asked Sakura where Sasuke and Naruto were, and Sakura said she did not know. Hinata worried about Naruto, while Shikamaru yawned and said he was sure Naruto would arrive. Niji thought Naruto might be afraid to fight him. Shikamaru also wondered where Dosu was and noticed Sasuke and Naruto were not present. Gaara searched the crowd for Uchiha Sasuke. A voice announced an apology for being late and explained that Sasuke was also not on time. Naruto appeared from the entrance, stepping out of the shadows in a suit. He apologized for the delay and explained that he had been on a date and his girlfriend had reminded him that the Chunin finals were today, so he had rushed over. Genma Shiranui, the proctor of the finals, listened as Naruto arrived. Ino thought Naruto looked hot, and Hinata fainted briefly at the sight. Tenten blushed and thought it was too bad Naruto might lose to Neji. Anko, Mei, Haku, and Kurenai all felt affection for him. Temari thought she might have gone on a date with him if not for the conflict. Naruto suggested they begin. Hiruzen thanked everyone for coming to the Hidden Leaf Chunin selection exam and announced that the main tournament matches between the 8 participants who had made it through the preliminaries would now begin, urging everyone to stay until the end. Naruto noted that one of the 8 was missing. Dosu would not be fighting, so Shikamaru would face Temari instead. Genma announced the first scheduled fight, Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. Villagers murmured that Neji's lineage made him a formidable opponent and doubted Naruto could win. Sakura worried that Sasuke was still not there, but Ino encouraged her to support their teammate. Sakura agreed and believed Naruto would win despite the difficulty. Back in the arena, Naruto smirked and prepared. Neji assumed his stance, activated his Byakugan, and calmly thought the outcome was already decided in his favor. Naruto replied with confidence. Genma confirmed both competitors were ready and ordered the match to begin. Among the spectators, Hayashi told his daughter Hanabi to watch closely, noting Neji's strong lineage. Hanabi agreed. Hayashi observed that Neji's rotation technique was the main family's guarded skill and that Neji had mastered it on his own, marking him as a prodigy. Tenten worried but also found Naruto appealing. The match started. Naruto launched kunai and shuriken at Neji, forcing Neji into motion. Neji rushed forward and used his gentle fist style, but Naruto evaded many of the strikes. Naruto jumped into the air and hurled additional shuriken, using a clone technique to multiply the attack. Neji assessed the situation and relied on his rotation defense to intercept the incoming projectiles, successfully stopping the assault. Outside the arena, Kabuto acted alone to overcome an ANBU and assume his identity by stealth. Inside the arena, the fight continued. Neji declared that Naruto had entered his range and that escape was impossible with the 8 trigrams rotation. He advanced rapidly, delivering a precise, escalating series of strikes that tested Naruto's defenses with increasing intensity. Neji unleashed his 64 palm technique and pushed Naruto away, announcing that the match was over. Hayashi watched with a mix of pride and disbelief, thinking that the branch family's Kekkei Genkai had perhaps reached a new, purer form in that child and that Hisashi would have been proud of his son. Neji declared that he had struck 64 of Naruto's chakra points and that the match was finished, noting that Naruto was fortunate to still be breathing. Naruto rose to his feet and adopted the same stance as Neji. He prepared to try the technique, focusing his chakra into his hands. Naruto rushed forward and countered with his own barrage of strikes, replicating the sequence of 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and finally 64 palms. Every blow landed with tremendous force, and Neji felt intense internal shock. When Naruto finished, Neji lay on the ground, coughing and badly hurt. Neji could not believe he had lost. Naruto told Neji that fate did not define a person and that one could choose their own destiny. Living only with sadness and hatred would lead only to regret. Genma declared Naruto Uzumaki the winner. The crowd cheered for Naruto. Genma reflected aloud that when captured birds grow wiser they try to open the cage with their beaks. They do not give up because they want to fly again. Naruto acknowledged the wise words, and Neji offered his thanks to Naruto. Medics came to attend to Neji. In the crowd, Sakura noted that Naruto had won again and wondered if he could train her. Ino questioned whether it really was Naruto. Guy smiled, thinking that Naruto had freed Neji from his darkness. Asuma observed that Naruto had defeated Neji using his own technique and acknowledged the boy's skill. Temari found him impressive. Gaara wondered whether fighting for friends could be the source of such strength. Naruto then appeared before the Hokage and the Mizukage, with the Kazekage also present. Naruto saw through a disguise that hid Orochimaru. Naruto greeted Mei and Haku warmly, and Mei and Haku smiled in return. Hiruzen was surprised and thought that Naruto might be the Mizukage's companion. Hiruzen asked whether Naruto should be standing with the others, and Naruto replied that he preferred to be where he was. Mei rose and sat beside Naruto while he took a seat, and Haku felt a little jealous at the sight. Zabuza demanded a rematch, and Naruto replied that perhaps sometime in the future. Back in the hospital room, Neji smiled to himself in gratitude toward Naruto, but his smile faded when Hayashi entered. Neji glared and asked why he was there. Hayashi apologized and began to explain the truth about that day, looking down as he spoke. He revealed that Hisashi had freely given himself to save his brother not out of obligation to the main family, but out of a desire to choose his own destiny. Hayashi admitted that Neji might not believe him at first and said he had waited for the right moment to tell the truth. He knelt and pleaded for Neji to believe him. Neji looked at him through tears and said that he believed him. Neji declared that he would choose his own destiny now, but not alone with his friends, and even with Hinata. Hayashi thought that he should thank Naruto. At the stadium, the announcer postponed Sasuke's match with Gaara. Ino breathed a sigh of relief that Sasuke would not be disqualified. Sakura asked where Sasuke was. The next match called was Kankuro vs Shino Aburame, but Kankuro forfeited. The following match was Temari vs Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru contemplated forfeiting, but Ino threatened to tell his mother, and he decided to take the match. The fight ended as expected, with Temari victorious. The announcer then called Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara and warned that if Sasuke did not arrive in 10 minutes he would be disqualified. A wind swept through as Sasuke and Kakashi arrived, and the leaves cleared to reveal them. Genma acknowledged their arrival and told Kakashi to leave the arena. Gaara stepped down to face Sasuke. Kakashi slipped into the stands, and the match began. Sasuke displayed a marked increase in speed, moving faster than Gaara's sand defenses could respond. Sasuke used the Chidori, a technique taught to him by Kakashi, and struck Gaara, causing a definite injury. Gaara felt the sting of the wound and realized he was bleeding. Alarmed, Gaara began to transform in response to the injury. Before the match could finish, a smoke bomb went off in the box where the Kage were seated. Kabuto activated a genjutsu that put much of the crowd to sleep. The Konoha ninja present were able to resist and fend off the illusion. The assault on Konoha had begun. Many people in the stadium fell asleep, except for the third Hokage, several Jounin, the Sand team with Temari, and the Leaf Genin. Outside the stadium, Sound and Sand shinobi summoned snakes. The Jounin and Chunin at the gate reacted quickly and began defending the village. Back in the stadium, the Kazekage seized the Hokage and dragged him to the roof, holding a kunai close to the Hokage's neck. Naruto instructed Haku, Mei, and Zabuza to go help the village before leaping to the roof. As Naruto and the others landed on the roof, four Sound Ninja appeared, each standing in a corner and forming a square barrier. The barrier was composed of purple flames that would scorch anyone who tried to pass through, preventing entry or exit. An ANBU member attempted to go through the barrier and was severely burned when the flames met him. The Hokage accused the Sand village of betraying the Leaf. The Kazekage answered that the treaty between the villages had been a trick to lower Konoha's guard. The Hokage urged that armed conflict resolved nothing and that they should seek negotiation while there was still time. The Kazekage replied that perhaps fear of death made one more cowardly with age, and the last part of his speech was spoken in a different voice. Sarutobi recognized that voice and widened his eyes. Meanwhile, Gaara held his hand over the wound inflicted by Sasuke's strike. His team gathered beside him with their sensei. Baki reminded everyone about the plan, but Gaara seemed not to be listening. Temari stammered in alarm as she realized Gaara had attempted to transform too early. Baki scolded Gaara for trying to transform into his complete form before the signal. Temari said it would be impossible to proceed in Gaara's condition. Kankuro shouted a suggestion to continue without Gaara, but others protested. Sasuke watched in confusion. After a few seconds of tense silence, the Sand Team's sensei came to a decision and ordered an immediate abort of the mission. Baki ordered Temari and Kankuro to take Gaara and retreat. Temari and Kankuro were surprised and asked what would happen to him. Baki said he would join the battle now and told them to go. Temari and Kankuro took Gaara and left. Genma suggested that Orochimaru might be the leader of the invasion. Baki responded that no one could be sure. Sasuke demanded to know what was happening. Genma explained that the Chunin exam was over and ordered the Leaf Shinobi to pursue Gaara and the others, telling Sasuke that he was already at Chunin level and should make himself useful. Sasuke, still uncertain but obedient, nodded and quickly followed Gaara and his team. At the Hokage's side, Orochimaru sneered that Gaara had been useless. Hiruzen Sarutobi remained calm. Naruto, watching the exchange, thought that the two were focused on their reunion and decided to let them have it. In the crowd, Guy pointed toward the roof of the central watchtower. Kakashi recognized the shimmer as barrier ninjutsu. Guy told Kakashi to look within the barrier, and Kakashi peered in, his eye widening when he saw who was inside. Orochimaru taunted that the leaf had fallen behind, and that he had won. Sarutobi warned him that it was not over yet, and at that moment the Kazekage's disguise crumbled and Orochimaru's face was revealed. Sarutobi declared Orochimaru's presence, and Orochimaru answered with a cold promise that Sarutobi would die there. Kakashi then observed a large number of sound ninja arrayed before them and concluded that Orochimaru was behind the attack. Sakura understood that Orochimaru's purpose here was to find Sasuke. Kakashi assigned a mission to Sakura, telling her to fetch Kiba, Shikamaru, and Shino. The four of them were to pursue Sasuke and the Sand Team. When Sakura asked how they would track Sasuke, Kakashi summoned the tracking dog Pakken and explained that Pakken would follow Sasuke's scent. Kakashi said that he and the other Jonin would handle the sound ninja and then move to take down a few attackers. Sakura and Pakken found Shikamaru and the others and relayed Kakashi's orders. As the group left the stadium and entered the forest, Pakken signaled that they were being followed by 9 Oto ninja. Shikamaru stayed behind to create a diversion and buy the others time. He altered the surroundings to give the impression that the group had gone a different way, then waited in ambush. When the invaders arrived and noticed the apparent change in course, Shikamaru trapped 8 of them with his shadow imitation technique but realized that one had remained behind as a protector. Low on chakra and facing the limits of his technique, Shikamaru tried to locate the 9th ninja by throwing shuriken. The shuriken were stopped by the protector's needles, and his shadow could not reach far enough to seize the final enemy. After holding the 8 at bay for as long as he could, Shikamaru's chakra ran out and the group was freed. The attackers urged the 9th to finish off their captive, and a final ninja appeared behind Shikamaru. To everyone's surprise, Asuma Sarutobi emerged with that last ninja captured. In a swift, coordinated display of skill, Asuma neutralized the remaining attackers and told Shikamaru to rest. Back at the confrontation between Sarutobi and Orochimaru, Orochimaru feigned an emotional outburst. Sarutobi mocked the display, and Orochimaru used a painful gesture to heighten the dramatics, then brushed it off and walked away. They prepared to fight. Sarutobi removed his Hokage cloak, revealing fighting gear beneath, and the two antagonists faced each other. When a roof tile cracked, their battle began. Sarutobi launched a barrage of shuriken. Orochimaru blocked the attack by summoning 3 large coffins as shields. Recognizing the coffins and the danger they posed, Sarutobi tried to stop the summoning but failed. The coffins opened to reveal 2 reanimated figures, the 2nd Hokage and the 4th Hokage. The 1st Hokage did not appear. Naruto, having received guidance and aid from the sage, had absorbed the memories and souls of some past lives, which left Hashirama unavailable for Orochimaru's reanimation. The absence of the 1st Hokage was noted by those present. The 2nd and 4th Hokage acknowledged Sarutobi. Tobirama commented on Sarutobi's weariness. Hiruzen returned the greeting with regret about the circumstances. Minato Namikaze offered a calm greeting to Naruto, and Naruto, still carrying anger, responded coolly. Hiruzen then realized that Naruto had been nearby all along and was surprised that he had not noticed his presence earlier. Naruto told Hiruzen that he had been there during the exchange with Orochimaru the whole time. Orochimaru wasted no time removing the effects of death from the two summoned Hokage and erasing any remnants of their personalities, preparing them to fight. He then moved away from the clash. Enraged at Orochimaru's use of his former teacher and successor, Hiruzen was poised to strike. Naruto stepped forward and urged restraint, telling Hiruzen to stand back and watch. Hiruzen pointed out that Naruto's chakra was sealed and questioned whether he could face two Kage under those conditions. Minato engaged, throwing a kunai and shaping a Rasengan, then launching an attack. He teleported and attempted to land the Rasengan on Naruto, but Naruto countered with an unexpected defensive maneuver that intercepted the attack. Minato reappeared by his kunai and readied himself. The second Hokage launched his own assault. A large dragon-shaped chakra formation distorted the space around it and then vanished in an instant, leaving Hiruzen and Orochimaru to wonder what had just occurred. Naruto then appeared in front of both the second Hokage and his father. Minato reacted quickly, throwing another kunai and teleporting to its location as the confrontation intensified. Naruto blasted the second Hokage with his red reversal technique. The attack destroyed the reanimated form and tore a hole in the barrier. The Sound 4 reacted quickly and closed the breach. Orochimaru observed that the second's body was not regenerating, noting that Naruto's curse techniques could kill reanimations. Naruto named his technique Limitless and explained that it brought the concept of infinity into reality, allowing him to manipulate and distort space. Orochimaru questioned how Naruto could do that without using chakra, but Naruto refused to reveal the secret. Minato tossed his kunai across the roof and teleported around Naruto. Naruto distorted the space around the kunai, making them vanish, then pulled Minato toward him and struck him with a powerful blast. Watching that, Orochimaru decided to retreat and ordered his 4 allies to withdraw. The 4 canceled the barrier and disappeared. Before Orochimaru could leave, he told teacher Sarutobi that it had been nice catching up but he had to go. Naruto activated a domain he called Infinite Void. Only Hiruzen and Orochimaru were caught inside. As the domain took effect, both were overwhelmed with a flood of knowledge and sensation, experiencing everything and nothing at once. They became paralyzed by the onslaught. Naruto explained that perception, communication, and every action associated with living were being forced into infinite repetition, and that when one was granted everything, one could be rendered unable to act. With that decisive move, Naruto ended Orochimaru's threat, leaving Orochimaru motionless. He then released the domain. The Anbu found Hiruzen paralyzed and Orochimaru neutralized. They asked Naruto what had happened to the Hokage. Naruto explained that Hiruzen's brain was currently processing an enormous amount of information and that he would likely recover after a week or 2. The Anbu took Hiruzen to a safe location. Naruto released a surge of killing intent and used cursed energy to amplify his voice. He announced to the Sound Shinobi that their leader Orochimaru was dead and told the Sand Forces that they had been used. Their Kazekage had been killed by Orochimaru. Kakashi realized that Naruto had killed a legendary Sannin. The Sand soldiers surrendered on hearing this, while the Sound Forces immediately fled. Kabuto found the situation interesting and then disappeared. Naruto ordered that comrades be informed and that any remaining Sound Shinobi be dealt with. The Sand Shinobi made their way back to the village. Some Leaf Shinobi began to cheer in relief. Naruto then moved across the battlefield. He appeared before Shino while Shino was still fighting Kankuro and told them to stop fighting. Naruto informed Kankuro about Orochimaru's betrayal. Kankuro reacted with anger at being used. Naruto reappeared near the match between Temari and Kiba and told them about Orochimaru as well. Temari advised Naruto to go stop Gaara, doubting that Gaara would listen to reason. Naruto arrived to find Sasuke and an unconscious Sakura pinned to trees by Gaara's sand. Naruto commented on Sasuke's battered state and used a curse-inflected command to coax Sasuke into sleep so he would not interfere. Gaara lectured on strength and the idea that fighting for others made one weak, insisting that only the strongest should exist alone and that attachments like friendship and loyalty would lead to defeat. Naruto dismissed Gaara's words and declared himself the embodiment of strength across the world, while Gaara accused him of protecting the weak despite that claim. Naruto explained that he protected others because they had saved him from loneliness and accepted him. They were precious to him. Gaara then unleashed a massive sand assault. Naruto manipulated space around his teammates to shield them from the attack and blocked huge sand shuriken fired by Gaara. Gaara invoked a powerful transformation and then used a technique to force himself into sleep, surrendering control to Shikaku. Shikaku gleefully announced the chance to kill Naruto and fired multiple large wind projectiles at Naruto and his team. Naruto made the attacks vanish and challenged Shikaku to try harder. Shikaku began forming a tailed beast bomb. Naruto countered with a large reversal red technique. The two attacks met and collided spectacularly. Naruto appeared behind the clash, taking control of the tailed beast's attack and merging it with his reversal red. Shikaku was shocked to realize their attacks had been combined. Shikaku prepared another tailed beast bomb, but Naruto fired his merge technique and overpowered Shikaku's attack. The resulting impact caused Shikaku's form to scatter into sand, and Gaara's transformation came undone. Gaara collapsed to the ground, injured and defeated in spirit. Naruto approached Gaara, who begged him to stay away in fear. Naruto crouched and ruffled Gaara's hair, speaking about the unbearable feeling of being utterly alone. He related how he had once been in a dark, lonely place but that others had come into his life and become people he cared for deeply. Naruto said that he would protect those people even at the cost of his life because they had rescued him from loneliness and accepted him as he was. Gaara recalled the words his uncle Yashimaru had once spoken, that love was the heart's desire to serve someone precious, to watch over them the way a mother would. Gaara wondered if that was what made someone strong. Kankuro and Temari appeared, and Kankuro picked Gaara up. They left, moving by jumping through the trees. Gaara wondered about Naruto Uzumaki and Gojo, and whether he too might become like them someday. Gaara apologized to Kankuro and Temari, and Kankuro told him not to worry. Naruto noted that the day had been fun until a sudden pain in his eyes made him reach for the BGMI in his pocket. He put it on and decided he should take the two injured shinobi to the hospital after noticing that the sand that had been binding them was gone. 2 days later, the Sand Village and the Leaf Village met to discuss reparations and damages. They were able to agree on terms. The Leaf Village would request that the Wind Daimyo allocate more missions to the Sand Village, which had been losing funds because many missions were outsourced to the Leaf. Trade in gold and the development of new jutsu had kept the Sand Village afloat for now, but everyone acknowledged that the situation was not sustainable long-term. Because the village was without a clear leader, the elders approached Jiraiya, one of the third Hokage's former pupils, and asked him to become the fifth Hokage. Koharu explained that the invasion had shown the need for a new Hokage, and Hamura added that Hiruzen would be incapacitated for a few weeks, so they thought Jiraiya should assume the duties. Jiraiya declined the position himself and instead nominated Tsunade, offering to find her and bring her back. He requested permission to take Naruto along on the search, and the elders agreed, mentioning that Naruto's connections might help establish relations with the Mist Village. Jiraiya said he would see what he could do. A few hours later, Orochimaru received a message from Danzo. Kabuto informed Orochimaru that he had revived Danzo through a curse mark, and Orochimaru read the message requesting that Tsunade be eliminated. Orochimaru reflected that Danzo coveted the Hokage position and that Tsunade had been chosen to succeed the old man. Orochimaru preferred to recruit Tsunade rather than kill her, but he admitted that if she refused, he would resort to violence. When Kabuto asked about the power Naruto had used recently, Orochimaru noted that it did not seem to be normal nature energy and that Naruto must have another source of power. Orochimaru thought that Naruto would make an interesting vessel for his plans. The next day, Naruto sat at his favorite ramen shop and engaged in playful, flirtatious conversation with Ayame. Jiraiya arrived and informed Naruto that he had a mission to find a certain woman and that he wanted Naruto to accompany him. Naruto guessed that the woman might replace the old Hokage, and Jiraiya confirmed that was the plan. Naruto agreed to go, and the two prepared to leave. Later, two outsiders entered the village and attracted the attention of Asuma Sarutobi and Kurenai Yuhi. The two revealed themselves as Kisame Hashigaki, a rogue ninja from the Mist Village, and Itachi Uchiha, the man responsible for the massacre of his clan. Asuma and Kurenai attempted to apprehend them but found themselves outmatched. Kakashi Hatake arrived to assist, and Itachi told Kisame to stand down so that Itachi could face Kakashi personally. Itachi quickly demonstrated superior speed and advanced ocular abilities, forcing Kakashi to defend desperately. Recognizing the danger, Kakashi ordered Asuma and Kurenai to close their eyes to avoid exposure to Itachi's most dangerous technique. Kakashi had hoped his Sharingan would offer protection, but Itachi's powerful genjutsu overpowered him and left him weakened. With his remaining strength, Kakashi demanded to know why they had come, and Itachi answered that they were after the fourth Hokage's legacy, Naruto Uzumaki. Kakashi identified this as an Akatsuki directive to capture the nine-tailed fox's power sealed within Naruto. Itachi instructed Kisame to eliminate Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai. Before Kisame could deliver a fatal blow, Might Guy intervened and drove Kisame back. Exhausted, Kakashi collapsed and had to be taken away to recover. Realizing reinforcements were arriving and that a larger conflict would be dangerous, Itachi and Kisame withdrew to avoid starting a war. Guy, Asuma, and Kurenai agreed that Sasuke Uchiha should not learn of Itachi's return. When Sasuke arrived, Aoba accidentally revealed Itachi's return. Sasuke ran off in search of Naruto and went straight to the ramen stand. Tuchi, the owner, explained that Naruto often ate there and that Jiraiya had eaten with him earlier. Tuchi said Jiraiya had mentioned leaving town for a little while, taking the cattle road toward the hotel town, and that Jiraiya was easy to spot because of his large white hair. Sasuke left immediately. Back with Naruto, Jiraiya told him to stay behind while he went to look for the woman, promising to return. Naruto, thinking of Jiraiya's propensity for wandering and theatrics, muttered in his mind about Jiraiya's self-centered ways. Later that evening, while Naruto lay on his bed, someone knocked on the door. When he opened it, Itachi and Kisame were standing there. Naruto walked past them and left the room. A short neutral pause followed as the next steps were prepared. Naruto walked straight into a wall, then called out, pretending to be a helpless blind man and asking for help. Kisame appeared and swung Samehada at him. Naruto stopped the blade with a single finger surrounded by a faint, glowing infinity. Kisame stared in disbelief at how his attack had been halted and retreated. Itachi observed that Naruto was not as helpless as he had claimed. Kisame smirked and introduced himself as Kisame Hoshigaki. Naruto waved hello. Tsunade, an avid and very unlucky gambler, hit a sudden winning streak and felt a bad omen, so she tried to leave the city. Her assistant Shizune asked to visit a local landmark first, and Tsunade reluctantly agreed. As Shizune admired an ancient castle and Tsunade urged her to hurry, the castle collapsed and Orochimaru and Kabuto emerged from the rubble riding a giant snake. Seeing her old teammate, Tsunade prepared to attack. Orochimaru offered to revive Tsunade's dead brother and her lost lover. Tsunade, tempted, asked what he wanted in exchange. He told her she would have to serve him. Orochimaru then gave her time to consider his offer and disappeared with Kabuto. Elsewhere, Jiraiya and Naruto arrived in the city and went to Tsunade's last known location. When they heard reports of a giant snake destroying a castle, Jiraiya recognized Orochimaru's work and rushed toward the scene. Jiraiya thought it impossible that Orochimaru was still alive after what had happened before. Naruto, grimly intrigued, thought that Orochimaru living made the prospect of confronting him interesting. Shizune urged Tsunade not to accept Orochimaru's offer and urged her to fight. Tsunade refused, and Orochimaru produced a small, unsettling display meant to intimidate. Knowing Tsunade's fear of blood, the sight unnerved her enough that she agreed to think on his proposal, and Orochimaru allowed her a week to decide before withdrawing. After some time, Jiraiya and Naruto found Tsunade at a bar. Jiraiya announced that they had finally located her. Tsunade admitted she had run into someone who brought back painful memories. Naruto teased Jiraiya about his pervy reputation, and Jiraiya bristled before calming. Tsunade clarified that the person she had seen was Orochimaru. Jiraiya asked if anything had happened, and Shizune watched Tsunade intently. Tsunade gave a brusque answer that suggested more had occurred. Jiraiya told Tsunade the village needed a leader and that the council had requested she become the fifth Hokage. Tsunade and Shizune were stunned. Jiraiya explained that the current Hokage was incapacitated and that Naruto had been instrumental in the recent conflicts. The village wanted Tsunade to accept the office. Tsunade rejected the idea outright, insisting no sane person would take the job. Naruto pleaded with her to at least consider it. Naruto introduced himself fully as Naruto Uzumaki Gojo and removed a BLNDFLD he had been wearing. Tsunade noticed he was Kushina's child and found him surprisingly mature. Kurama's presence in Naruto's mind noted the complicated reincarnation ties and reminded Naruto that having some of another person's memories did not mean he was that person. Naruto resolved that his feelings and choices would be his own. Naruto proposed a bet to settle the matter. He offered to confront Orochimaru. If Naruto could defeat Orochimaru, Tsunade would accept the Hokage position and give him the necklace she wore. Tsunade laughed at the idea and reminded him that Orochimaru was one of the legendary Sannin. The wager became formal. Tsunade would make a decision after Naruto faced Orochimaru in a week. If Naruto lost, he would pay off her debts. Shizune reacted with alarm when Tsunade offered the necklace, but Tsunade dismissed the worry and accepted the terms. Jiraiya urged Tsunade to join him for a drink since it had been a long time. Tsunade agreed. Jiraiya suggested that Naruto and Shizune find a hotel for the night, and they left together. At the hotel, Naruto lay on his bed and heard a knock. Shizune entered and asked to speak about Tsunade. She explained that Tsunade had once been caring and devoted to the village but had been changed by a tragic day that cost her loved ones. Naruto noted that Tsunade had lost her brother Nawaki and more. Shizune warned him that the necklace had a dark history and urged him to cancel the bet, insisting it was cursed and that only Tsunade should wear it. Naruto reassured her that he would be fine and that he believed Tsunade would come around. Naruto then gave Shizune a brief, affectionate kiss on the cheek. Shizune blushed and hurried away. A week passed. Naruto returned home briefly to spend time with his friends, while Jiraiya and Tsunade spent their days drinking and arguing in the bar. One morning, Naruto tried to wake Shizune, who suddenly fell unconscious. She stirred and urged Naruto to stay, then moved toward a window to leave but was stopped by a kunai. She relaxed when she saw a weakened Jiraiya. Jiraiya then began to explain why he was in his current state. It seemed Tsunade had put something in Naruto's sake the night before. He could not release chakra properly and his whole body ached. He could not even hold his chopsticks. Shizune explained that after bringing Naruto back to his room she had spoken with Tsunade, and that the conversation had ended with Shizune losing consciousness at Tsunade's hands. Shizune greeted Naruto and asked what Orochimaru had said, pressing him for the truth. She admitted that she had wanted to trust Tsunade and had kept quiet for that reason, but time was running out and they needed to move to the meeting point where Tsunade had last met Orochimaru. On the way, Shizune told them that Orochimaru had offered to revive Tsunade's brother and someone she had loved if Tsunade swore loyalty to him. Jiraiya silently suspected Orochimaru intended to recruit Tsunade. At the meeting with Orochimaru, Tsunade told Orochimaru that she would join him only if he promised never to attack the village. Orochimaru agreed, but when Tsunade stepped forward and struck, he dodged. Orochimaru accused her of betrayal and insisted he had intended to revive the two people and had even promised not to harm the village. Tsunade countered that she did not believe his promise and that, even though she had wanted to see the two again, she would not disturb their rest. Orochimaru responded that the agreement was off and threatened her life. Tsunade braced herself and the ground around them shattered as her strength collided with Orochimaru's presence, forcing both Orochimaru and Kabuto to leap away from the rubble. Orochimaru challenged her to battle. After retreating to an empty field, Kabuto and Tsunade began their fight. Kabuto, not skilled at close combat, used chakra-based techniques to target Tsunade's mobility and breathing, quickly forcing her into a vulnerable position. Believing he had disabled her, Kabuto taunted his success. Tsunade used his arrogance against him, striking his neck and disrupting his balance, which left him temporarily unable to move. While Kabuto began to compensate and adapt to her tactics and regain most of his movement, Naruto, Jiraiya, and Shizune appeared and blocked his path. Orochimaru acknowledged Jiraiya and noted it had been a long time since they had met. Jiraiya remarked that Orochimaru had not changed. Kabuto greeted Naruto as an old acquaintance, and Naruto acknowledged him. Jiraiya observed that Naruto seemed to know Kabuto. As Tsunade surged forward to continue the fight, Kabuto cut his own hand in the struggle. Tsunade froze at the sight of blood. Kabuto derided her fear and kicked her aside. Naruto caught her and urged her to pull herself together, scolding that this was not the way for someone destined for great responsibility to behave. Kabuto taunted Naruto, saying Tsunade would be better off dead. Naruto shouted back that he would protect her even at the cost of his life. Jiraiya assigned roles. He would face Orochimaru, Shizen would confront Kabuto, and Naruto would guard Tsunade while she recovered. Jiraiya and Orochimaru performed the summoning technique. Orochimaru managed to summon a large snake. Jiraiya, still affected by drags, could only summon a smaller toad. Orochimaru mocked Jiraiya's failed summoning. Orochimaru and Kabuto charged at their opponents while riding their respective summon creatures. Jiraiya used a swamp technique against Orochimaru, but in his drugged state he could only create a shallow mire. Orochimaru broke free and pressed the attack. Meanwhile, Naruto handled Kabuto's assault. Kabuto, in pain and reassessing the situation, decided to retreat and vanished in a puff of smoke. Tsunade regained her senses. Naruto declared it was time to win the bet they had made. He summoned a powerful wood dragon that restrained Orochimaru and suppressed his chakra. Jiraiya and others recognized the wood-style technique and wondered at it. Tsunade thought about how Naruto had used a familiar name for her and the possibility that he knew more about their past than she realized. Naruto warned Jiraiya to get away from Orochimaru if he wanted to survive, and Jiraiya moved aside. Naruto combined reversal and cursed techniques into a devastating attack he called Hollow Purple and fired it. The attack struck Orochimaru directly. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizen were awestruck by the destructive power. Jiraiya suspected that although Orochimaru had been struck down, he would likely return. He asked what the purple attack had been called, and Naruto identified it. Jiraiya then asked how Naruto could use wood style. Naruto explained that one of his ancestors had practiced that technique. Tsunade wondered if that ancestor could be related to her own past. After the attack, Jiraiya declared that, with Orochimaru neutralized, Tsunade should be made Hokage and urged her to accept. Tsunade agreed that a bet was a bet. She removed her necklace and placed it around Naruto's neck as a symbolic gesture, then offered him a brief, affectionate, familial touch on the forehead to reassure him. Naruto blushed and felt awkward. When he voiced an impulsive and naive question about their relationship, Tsunade reminded him of their age difference and explained that she could be a mentor and protector instead. Naruto rephrased his request, asking if she would stay close as a guide and ally, and Tsunade, revealing her true appearance with gray hair and lines of age, accepted the lighter, emotional bond they shared. Naruto cupped Tsunade's face and spoke gently, saying that he still accepted her and that he could restore her youth. He added that they should wait until they returned to the village, and he would restore her youth there. Tsunade was surprised and then transformed back into her younger self. Jiraiya, feeling jealous at Naruto's attention towards Tsunade, pushed Naruto away and suggested it was time to return to the village. Naruto agreed, and Jiraiya proposed they rest for the day and head home the next morning. Tsunade silently vowed to protect the village in honor of Dan, Nawaki, and her grandfather, even at the cost of her life. They returned to the hotel where they had been staying. At an unknown location, Pain asked Itachi and Kisame if they had captured the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Itachi replied that they had not, explaining that Naruto was more powerful than expected. Itachi described Naruto's strange use of a blue universal pole and a reversing red technique. Pain wondered whether Naruto might possess the Rinnegan or a similar eye technique. Pain assigned them a mission but said they did not need to worry about capturing Naruto, he would handle it himself, and then his projection vanished. Kisame lamented that he had wanted to fight Naruto, but Itachi warned that they would lose if they engaged him. Later, Pain consulted with Madara, who speculated that Naruto might possess the Rinnegan or a similar dojutsu and that the battle would be interesting. Pain insisted that Naruto would fall before his will, while Madara privately mused that Pain's arrogance might be his downfall. During the Chunin exam, the match lineup changed so that Naruto faced Rock Lee instead of Kiba. Sakura encouraged Naruto to do his best, and Naruto told her he was confident he was the strongest. Lee felt excited for his turn. The arena grew quiet as everyone settled to watch. The previous matches had stolen much of the crowd's energy. Iruka wanted Naruto to succeed, while Shikamaru and others doubted his chances. Hinata quietly wished Naruto luck. Guy enthusiastically urged Lee to show the power of his youth, and Lee responded with determination. Before the match began, Naruto stretched and announced he was ready, and Lee prepared himself as well. Hayate signaled the start of the match. Lee launched the first attack with a rapid roundhouse kick, the technique known as Leaf Whirlwind, and Naruto blocked it. Naruto quickly grabbed Lee's leg, spun, and slammed him into the ground. Lee executed a breakfall and countered with a mule kick, using the momentum to right himself. Lee followed with a sequence of kicks called Leaf Great Whirlwind, which Naruto successfully blocked. Naruto then vanished briefly and reappeared behind Lee, landing a speedy roundhouse kick that sent Lee flying across the arena. Naruto pressed the advantage, driving Lee into the ground repeatedly. The spectators were surprised. Few had expected Naruto to hold his own against Lee. From the balcony, Guy urged Lee to remove his weights, and Lee complied, revealing heavy weights beneath his leg warmers. When the weights dropped, they struck the arena with a huge impact. Lee moved with astonishing speed, launching a flurry of strikes, and Naruto matched him, dodging and countering. Guy watched, impressed that Naruto could keep up. Naruto appeared behind Lee and delivered a powerful blow that sent Lee crashing into the arena wall. Shikamaru admitted he had been wrong about Naruto, and Kiba marveled at how much Naruto had changed. Hinata thought Naruto was amazing. Lee recovered and began opening his inner gates, activating successive gates that dramatically increased his power and speed while a blue aura wrapped around him. Guy defended his training methods as a last resort to protect what he valued. Kakashi expressed concern, but Guy said Lee's resolve and way of the ninja were what mattered most. With his speed and power enhanced, Lee's movements blurred as he attacked Naruto from all directions. Despite the barrage, Lee failed to land a single decisive hit. Neji used his Byakugan and observed that Naruto was not relying on any visible technique for protection and wondered how Naruto was resisting Lee's onslaught. Naruto reminded Lee that he had declared he was the strongest. Lee rose to the challenge and the two blurred into motion. Naruto then launched a series of rapid, critical strikes, each finishing with intense technique that left Lee reeling. The combination of Naruto's counterattacks and the effects of the inner gates took a heavy toll on Lee, who could only gasp as he struggled to continue. Naruto's blows reduced Lee to his knees. Guy shouted for Lee to get up. Neji said that it was over, his expression serious. Sakura cheered for Naruto. Members of Team 8 and Team 10 wondered if this was really Naruto. Hayate was about to call the match when Lee rose to his feet. Naruto told Lee to stay down and that he had already lost. Lee refused and tried to attack, but his attempts failed because he could not strike Naruto due to his infinity. Naruto acknowledged Lee's spirit and announced that he would end the battle with one of his strongest attacks. Lee found himself unable to move as Naruto used his Limitless to manipulate the space around him and hold him in place. Naruto invoked Curse Technique Reversal, read and unleashed a blast at Lee. Guy reacted with a worried cry. When the smoke cleared, the spectators saw a large crater in the ground and stood in stunned silence. Gaara watched Naruto intently, eyes alight with battle fervor. Hayate examined the unresponsive Lee and declared Naruto the victor. Naruto removed his BLNDFLD briefly and surveyed everyone, declaring that throughout heaven and earth he alone was the honored one and that he, Naruto Gojo, was the strongest. The arena settled as the crowd processed the outcome. Before returning to the village, Tsunade persuaded Jiraiya and the others to visit a hot spring. Naruto relaxed there with Tsunade, Shizune, and the other women in a peaceful, non-romantic setting. Jiraiya tried a mischievous stunt, but the group caught him and scolded him, ending the incident quickly. They returned to the village refreshed. Tsunade received a warm welcome from villagers who recognized her, while many sneered at Naruto. Naruto shrugged off the hostility, and Shizen watched him with concern. Naruto reassured her that he was used to it and then slipped away. A few days later, Tsunade treated Kakashi and Sasuke. Lee required surgery, and Tsunade told him and Guy that his chances of returning to active duty were uncertain. Lee accepted the risk and decided to proceed with the operation. Tsunade's inauguration as village leader took place soon after. At the hospital, Sakura sat in a chair beside Sasuke's bed and held a plate of sliced apples. Sasuke stared at the ceiling, lost in thought and not responding to her. A harsh voice in his head reminded him that he was weak and lacked the hatred he thought he needed. Naruto entered the room, and Sasuke's thoughts flashed back to the battle with Gaara and the memory of being saved by Naruto. Anger surged in him. Sasuke slapped the plate from Sakura's hands. It fell and shattered. Sakura reacted in shock, and Naruto demanded to know what was wrong. Sasuke glared at Naruto and challenged him to fight immediately. Sakura protested that Sasuke had just been patched up and begged him not to be reckless, but Sasuke insisted. Naruto, with a wry confidence, accepted the challenge. Sakura appealed to reason once more, but the two ignored her and left the room to take the confrontation to the roof. On the roof, they stood a few steps apart and traded tense words. Sasuke's voice was cold and full of hurt. Naruto responded with sharp barbs, reminded of how helpless Sasuke had been against Gaara and how much effort had gone into saving him. The argument escalated into a fight. Sasuke began with strikes and kicks, but Naruto avoided them easily. Then Naruto vanished from sight and reappeared behind Sasuke, delivering a well-placed kick that sent him airborne. Sasuke gathered himself and formed hand signs, unleashing a torrent of flames. Sakura watched in fear as the blaze faded. Sasuke readied a concentrated coil of lightning, a dangerous technique meant to pierce defenses. Naruto prepared his own red-charged power at the same moment. Sakura ran between them, trying to stop what she sensed would be catastrophic. Kakashi arrived just in time, seizing Sasuke's wrist and redirecting his momentum, throwing him toward the nearby water tower. Sasuke's lightning struck the tower and left a visible dent. Naruto answered with an overwhelming surge of chakra pressure. The sudden force pinned Kakashi and forced Sasuke back against the water tank. The intensity of the pressure shattered the tower, sending water and debris flying. Naruto then used the remaining water to form a containment bubble around Sasuke and pressured him until Sasuke lost consciousness. Sakura and Kakashi were powerless to intervene as Naruto's fury raged. Jiraiya appeared behind Naruto and grabbed his shoulder, forcing him to release his hold. Naruto relented and withdrew his power, and the water receded. Jiraiya's intervention brought a tense end to the fight. Kakashi picked himself up and demanded to know whether Naruto had truly intended to kill Sasuke. Naruto, his expression dark, said he had only meant to put Sasuke in his place and then left before anyone could press him further. Sakura hurried to Sasuke's side, worried over his condition. Jiraiya told Kakashi he needed to keep Sasuke under control and left. Kakashi carried Sasuke to his room and asked a nurse to tend to him. Naruto returned home. Anko noticed the dark, restless look in his eyes and sat him down, running her hand through his hair until he relaxed. Naruto's expression softened into a grateful smile. Anko asked if he had calmed down, and he thanked her. She reached up and gave him a gentle, reassuring kiss on the forehead. Naruto rested with his head in her lap until he fell asleep. Tsum arrived shortly afterward, regretful that she had little time to spend with him because of her missions. She shared a quiet, supportive moment and kissed him on the cheek before leaving. The next day Anko mentioned Tsum, and Naruto admitted he missed her too. He resolved to make time for his close relationships. Sakura visited Sasuke and left a basket of food and small comforts, then departed. After Sakura left, Sasuke woke and lay staring at the ceiling, expressionless and distant. Later, a small group from the Sound Village infiltrated the village, signaling new trouble ahead. They were searching for Sasuke. After a while they found him sitting in a tree near the hospital. Sasuke seethed as he recalled the encounter with Itachi and the fight with Naruto. Sakan laughed and said he liked the look in Sasuke's eyes. In an instant the Sound Four ambushed and bound Sasuke to the tree. Sasuke glared at Kakashi and demanded to know what was happening. Kakashi explained that he had known Sasuke would not sit still for a lecture and had to pin him down. Kidamaru identified Kakashi, and Sasuke made a dismissive sound. Kakashi told Sasuke that he needed to forget about revenge. Sasuke asked what he meant. Kakashi said he had met many who felt the same way and warned that revenge never ended well. Sasuke continued to glare. Kakashi warned that revenge would only tear him apart and that even if he succeeded there would be nothing left but emptiness. Sasuke snapped that Kakashi had no idea how he felt. Kakashi asked him to calm down. Sasuke said perhaps Kakashi would only understand if Kakashi had everyone important to him killed. Kakashi replied that he was late to test that theory because the people Sasuke referred to had already been killed. Sasuke looked shocked. Kakashi said he had been around longer and had seen his share of loss. Sasuke was not the only one who knew what it was like to lose someone. Sasuke lowered his head. Kakashi observed that neither of them had led a charmed life but that they had found new comrades to help fill the void. Sasuke thought of Naruto and Sakura. Kakashi said he understood, untied Sasuke, and reminded him that the Chidori was a great power not to be used on comrades or for vengeance, then left Sasuke to decide whether the words meant anything. Kidamaru warned that Kakashi's presence could complicate things and suggested waiting. Tayuya declared she could go in alone and that Sasuke did not look tough. Sakon volunteered to join her, but Tayuya dismissed him and their bickering continued. Kakashi looked at a photo of Team 7. Sakura remembered how Sasuke had changed since receiving the curse mark Orochimaru placed on him at the Chunin exams, and she wondered whether Kakashi had truly taken care of it. Later that night Sakura and Naruto sat together at Ichiraku with an awkward atmosphere between them. Sasuke sat in the tree thinking of happier times with his team, and his anger flared as thoughts of Itachi returned. He was torn and unsure what to do. Orochimaru's agents arrived. Kabuto asked whether it had been necessary to send all 4 of them. Orochimaru said he had not refused because they were eager to meet the Sasuke he had praised and wanted to test his strength. Kabuto noted the test was unfair while Sasuke was in his condition, but Orochimaru said that was the point. Sasuke would come to him seeking greater power. Kabuto hoped they would not encounter Naruto. The Sound Four introduced themselves as Kidamaru of the East Gate, Sakon of the West Gate, Jirobo of the South Gate, and Tayuya of the North Gate, and they attacked. Kidamaru dashed at Sasuke with a punch, but Sasuke jumped over him and used Kidamaru's momentum to force him down. Sakon appeared behind Sasuke and was kicked in the chest by Sasuke. Jirobo lunged and Sasuke evaded by swapping places with Kidamaru, letting Kidamaru take the blow. Sasuke then used Jirobo's arm to throw him against a tree. The Sound Four vanished in a puff of smoke and reappeared on a nearby building to continue the fight. Sasuke warned them he was in a bad mood and they might want to think twice before pressing on. Sakon taunted him and threatened to break his ribs. Sasuke produced wire from his pocket, and when Sakon attacked he wrapped the wire around Sakon's legs to immobilize him. Sakon struggled but Sasuke's strikes were repeatedly blocked and Sakon smirked while taunting him. Kidamaru unleashed web-like threads that wrapped around Sasuke's arms and sent him swinging toward Jirobo, who punched him back toward Sakon. The Sound Four coordinated their attacks with musical taunts as they pressed their advantage. Sasuke dodged and struck back with a rapid flurry and a strong kick, but he was surprised to find some of his blows had little lasting effect. Sakon accused him of wasting his life in the village and called him mediocre, while Tayuya urged him not to be a fool and to come with them. The confrontation continued as the Sound Four tried to exploit Sasuke's anger and condition, and Sasuke struggled to hold his ground. Tayuya told Sasuke that Lord Orochimaru had offered him power. The curse mark on Sasuke began to flare and his vision blurred. Tayuya reminded him that Orochimaru would not take him by force. Sasuke would have to choose for himself. Sakon complained about the delay and then shoved Sasuke into a wall, warning that if Sasuke kept him waiting any longer he would make him regret it. Sasuke activated his curse mark and his Sharingan, clutching at the mark as it caused him pain. Sakon noted that it hurt and provoked him, then kicked Sasuke back into the wall. Sasuke watched in shock as marks appeared on Sakon's face. Sakon mocked him, saying Sasuke should not think he was Orochimaru's only subordinate and that using the curse mark recklessly was foolish. He explained in cold terms that the mark's power came at a cost. If Sasuke let it spread unchecked, his former self would be lost and he would become bound to Orochimaru. Tayuya added that in exchange for the curse's power, Sasuke would be tethered to Orochimaru and all semblance of freedom would be gone. She urged him to remember his purpose and the name of Itachi Uchiha. As the four prepared to leave, Sakon told Sasuke to remember his purpose and then vanished with the others. Sasuke sat alone beneath the moon with a dark expression. Later, Teuchi thanked Naruto and Sakura as they left Ichiraku. Naruto and Sakura went their separate ways. Sakura walked home with a bad feeling about Sasuke. That night, Sasuke packed a bag and lingered over a picture of Team 7 before slipping out of the village. On the road he ran into Sakura. She recognized his backpack and asked why he was out at that hour. Sasuke told her it was the only road out of the village and urged her to go to bed, then tried to walk past her. Sakura turned back with tears in her eyes and asked why he never shared anything, why he was always silent. Sasuke retorted that she should keep out of his affairs. Sakura reminded him of their early days as genin, when the four of them had been together and the missions had been hard but rewarding. She urged him not to lose sight of himself to revenge and spoke of how painful loneliness could be, admitting that she understood that pain and that she did not want to lose him. Sasuke replied that he had chosen a different path, a path of revenge that the others could not follow. He said he knew he was not the same and that his life's purpose had always been revenge. Sakura pleaded with him, confessing strong feelings and begging him not to walk away and offering to help him seek that revenge if he stayed. Sasuke remained distant and cold, telling her she had not changed and still annoyed him. When she begged him not to leave, he moved behind her, subdued her, and left her unconscious on the bench before slipping away. Sasuke met up with the Sound Four and found them kneeling. Sakon bowed and explained that when Sasuke abandoned the village, it had already been decided he would become their leader. He apologized for their earlier rudeness. Sasuke brushed it off and led them away, looking at the moon and thinking this was a new beginning. Naruto watched these events unfold and smiled. The next morning Izumo and Kotetsu found Sakura asleep outdoors and roused her, warning that she would catch a cold. Sakura woke and recalled Sasuke's words. She thanked him quietly and then began to cry. A short while later, Izumo and Kotetsu entered the Hokage's office with the documents they had been asked to fetch. Lady Tsunade woke from a doze as they arrived. Izumo and Kotetsu entered Tsunade's office and reported that they had something important to tell her. Tsunade, wiping at the corner of her mouth, asked what it was. They informed her that Sasuke Uchiha had left the village. Tsunade reacted with disbelief and then concern, immediately imagining Orochimaru's involvement. She ordered Izumo and Kotetsu to send for Shikamaru. At home, Shikamaru was rubbing the sleep from his eyes while his mother, Yoshino, scolded him as usual. The doorbell rang, and when Shikamaru's father, Shikaku, answered, Shikamaru teased him about having married such a crabby woman. Shikaku replied that even a stern person had moments of gentleness, which made Shikamaru stare in mild disbelief. Yoshino soon returned and informed Shikamaru that the Hokage had sent a messenger for him. A short time later Shikamaru stood in Tsunade's office. Tsunade told him that Sasuke had left the village late the previous night and that she believed he was heading to the Hidden Sound village. Shikamaru reacted with surprise and frustration at how quickly this could have happened. Tsunade suggested that Orochimaru must have Sasuke under his influence. Tsunade then announced that she had decided Shikamaru's first mission as a Chunin would be to bring Sasuke back. Shikamaru accepted the responsibility at once, assuming the mission would be manageable if Sasuke was unaccompanied. Tsunade warned that it might be more dangerous than he expected and that there was a strong possibility Orochimaru's forces would be guarding him. Shikamaru grumbled inwardly about how disappointing Sasuke's turn was, but resolved he could not ignore it. When Shikamaru requested a team of Jonin and Chunin, Tsunade refused, explaining that most of the Jonin were already away on missions and only a handful remained in the village for defense. She instructed him to gather skilled genin he trusted and gave him 30 minutes to leave the village. As Shikamaru moved toward the door, Naruto rushed in and insisted on taking the mission. Shikamaru and Tsunade both reacted with concern, aware of Naruto's recent encounter with Sasuke. Tsunade, after a moment of hesitation, told Naruto to promise not to kill Sasuke and to bring him back alive. Naruto agreed, and Shikamaru noted silently that Naruto was truly insisting on going alone. Sakura then burst into the office in tears and pleaded with Naruto to bring Sasuke back. Naruto obliged and hurried off. Far from the leaf, Sasuke sat with Orochimaru's allies, who explained what would happen next. Sakon described an awakening pill that would intensify the cursed mark on Sasuke's shoulder, intended to push the mark into a more advanced state. Taiuya warned that strengthening the mark would also increase its effects on Sasuke's body and that the sudden change could be lethal. Sakon and Kidamaru explained that they intended to perform a barrier technique to stabilize Sasuke during the transition so that, instead of dying, he would be placed in a suspended, unconscious state until his body could adjust. Despite his mistrust, Sasuke thought of his goals and decided he could not afford to die yet, so he accepted a pill. The pill took effect quickly and violently. Sasuke convulsed as the transformation surged through him. Sakon and the others quickly contained him within a sealed chamber and completed the barrier technique to stabilize him. Once the barrier held, Sakon reported that it would keep Sasuke secure for now. Meanwhile, the Sound Four were moving along the road while Leaf Shinobi monitored the area. Shizune and Jonin Genma and Reidu sensed the Sound Four's approach. Genma and Reidu told Shizune to stay back while they confronted the moving group. The two Leaf Jonin recognized the Sound Four as Orochimaru's operatives and noted the sealed container they carried, suspecting something unusual inside. The Sound Four activated their cursed marks, making clear they were dangerous and not to be underestimated. Genma and Reidu warned them that the Leaf had been prepared for trouble and urged them to reconsider, but the Sound operatives advanced. A swift, intense skirmish unfolded in a style reminiscent of dramatic anime combat. Fast exchanges, coordinated techniques, and rapid movement rather than lingering violence or injury details. Outnumbered and taken aback by the Sound Four's powers, Genma and Reidu were forced to retreat, and Shizune watched in concern as the Sound Four continued on their way with the sealed chamber. The Sound Four moved forward, the barrier around their charge holding for the moment, and the Leaf forces regrouped to plan their next move. Shizune told the NPC they should go look for their comrades. When they reached them, they saw the destruction left by the Sound Four. Two of the group were in critical condition, and Shizune used her medical ninja techniques to stabilize them. The NPC declared that he was going to find their enemies and make them pay, but Shizune forbade him from going. Genma agreed with Shizune and warned that their opponents had used ninja techniques beyond ordinary ninjas and that anyone who pursued them would only be killed. Genma coughed as he spoke, and Shizune cut him off. Naruto appeared and noted that he had returned to retrieve Sasuke. Genma recognized that an Uchiha had likely been involved and, after studying the distance to where the Sound Four rested, suspected the presence of a special eye technique. Shizune scolded Genma for speaking further. Naruto assured them he would be careful and then disappeared, confident in his strength. The Sound Four were breathing heavily and frustrated at being forced to rest when they wanted to keep moving. Sakon muttered about how maddening it was to stop when they should be advancing. Taiuya reminded him that one could not expect to fight a level 2 battle without feeling the effects. Jirobo complained about how useless his body felt. Kidamaru noted that if they had held anything back earlier, they would have died. Naruto deliberately triggered one of Kidamaru's webs to get a reaction. Kidamaru whispered that they had company, and Sakon threw a kunai with an explosive tag at Naruto. The explosive was stopped by Naruto's infinity ability and detonated harmlessly. Naruto emerged from behind the bushes, and Sakon remarked that the explosion had not reached him. Sakon asked who Naruto was. Naruto introduced himself as Naruto Gojo. Taiuya dismissed his appearance, while Sakon, sensing something despite Naruto's blindness, thought they should not underestimate him. Jirobo activated an Earth-style barrier to form an Earth Dome prison and claimed Naruto as his captive. Kidamaru told Jirobo not to dawdle and that the others would move on. The three advanced while carrying the coffin. Naruto felt his chakra being drawn by the barrier and remarked on the nice barrier. Jirobo warned him not to waste his chakra trying to escape. Naruto thought he could teleport out easily but decided to test the barrier instead and increased his output. They heard an explosion. Kidamaru assumed Jirobo had finished Naruto and remarked that the young man had not looked like much. Tayuya echoed that impression. Naruto interjected from beside Tayuya, catching them off guard. Kidamaru launched more webs that wrapped around Naruto and spun him into the trees, then tossed the coffin to Tayuya and told Sakan and Tayuya to go on without him. Sakan urged caution, but Kidamaru brushed it off. Naruto stood up unharmed, which made Kidamaru uneasy. Kidamaru spat webs throughout the forest, hoping for a challenge. Naruto taunted that he hoped Kidamaru would give him one. Confident, Kidamaru attacked and trapped Naruto in webs and an airtight cocoon formed around him. He mixed his webs with his spit and sent a sharp web through the cocoon. The web pierced the cocoon, but Naruto's defenses prevented it from doing harm. As Kidamaru turned away, Naruto appeared behind him and explained that his infinity stopped attacks from reaching him. Naruto then landed a decisive strike that incapacitated Kidamaru without graphic detail. Nearby, Sakan and Tayuya reacted to the explosion. Tayuya wondered again how Naruto had managed to catch up so fast. Naruto told them to choose who would face him next, and Sakan volunteered to handle Tayuya. Tayuya considered surrendering the coffin and running, knowing Naruto would likely catch up, but a voice behind her interrupted. Kimimaro had arrived. Tayuya asked about their comrades and was startled by Kimimaro's presence. Kimimaro explained that his body was too devastated to move on its own, but he had used the power of his mind and a strengthened life force to continue. He spoke of his belief in Orochimaru's dream and the importance of the coffin's vessel to that plan. Naruto reacted with uneasy curiosity at Kimimaro's words. Tayuya hesitated, but Kimimaro demanded the coffin and threatened her. Tayuya preferred the young man to have the vessel rather than Kimimaro. Tayuya thought that Naruto had used laps, blew on the coffin, pulling it toward him. Tayuya believed Naruto dared Kimimaro to fetch it. Naruto told Tayuya to go fetch it before using his Limitless to send the coffin flying straight ahead. Kimimaro glared and moved after the coffin. Tayuya wondered why Naruto would act so recklessly when the mission was to bring Sasuke back. Naruto told Tayuya that he did not care about bringing Sasuke back, that he had promised not to kill him and that Orochimaru could have him. Naruto explained that he wanted Sasuke delivered with injuries, not dead, and he wore a wild smile as he said it. Tayuya thought that if Naruto could let Orochimaru take care of Kimimaro and fight Sasuke, then she would be free. She told Naruto he could catch up and that she would not stop him. Naruto said he would see them later and disappeared. Kimimaro caught up to the coffin, but before he could take it, Naruto appeared. Kimimaro told Naruto to step aside and declared his mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha for Lord Orochimaru. Naruto smirked and said he had taken an interest in how things would play out and would not simply let Kimimaro walk away with Sasuke. Kimimaro replied that he did not wish to engage in unnecessary conflict but would not hesitate to strike if obstructed. Naruto responded that he was tough to beat and that Kimimaro would not strike him down as easily as he thought. Kimimaro warned that his loyalty to Orochimaru was absolute and that he would complete his mission with or without consent. Naruto replied that loyalty might help, but he wanted to see if it could break through his defenses. Kimimaro's expression hardened into resolve and he announced that he would be forced to act. Naruto grinned and urged Kimimaro to go all out from the start. He lifted the coffin into the air with his Limitless and shielded it with the surrounding space. The two introduced themselves briefly, then clashed. Kimimaro rushed forward with a flurry of bone spikes launched from his fingertips with lethal intent. Naruto, still smiling, watched as the bones were stopped effortlessly by his control over the space between them. Kimimaro expressed shock at the technique. Naruto, rubbing his hair, explained that it was all about the space between them and told Kimimaro not to feel bad for being caught off guard. Kimimaro declared he would close the distance and launched himself into the air, aiming a lance of bone at Naruto to break through any barrier with force. As he approached, the weapon halted inches from Naruto as if repelled by an unseen force. Kimimaro asked what sorcery this was. Naruto explained it was a cursed technique called Infinity and encouraged Kimimaro to show what else he had. Realizing the extent of Naruto's power, Kimimaro felt a rare uncertainty, but his resolve only strengthened. He said he fought for Lord Orochimaru's dream and that his resolve would not falter. Taiya thought Kimimaro did not stand a chance against Naruto. Naruto said that bringing Sasuke back was his mission and challenged Kimimaro to show the extent of his resolve. Kimimaro activated his curse mark, his power surging, and charged with bones protruding from his palms in an attempt to strike Naruto. Naruto watched as Kimimaro's bone lance slowed and then stopped inches from his face, the infinite space rendering the attack futile. Naruto gently pushed Kimimaro back with a force that sent him skidding across the ground. Undeterred, Kimimaro unleashed a barrage of bone missiles intended to strike Naruto from a distance, but Naruto manipulated the space around him and diverted their trajectories, making them harmless. Kimimaro then leapt high and dove toward Naruto with a massive bone drill aimed to break through the infinity. Just before impact, Naruto activated his blue technique, creating an attraction point beside him. The sudden pull drew the attack away from Naruto and left Kimimaro exposed. Seizing the moment, Naruto activated cursed technique lapse, blue against the ground beneath Kimimaro, attempting to draw him in. Kimimaro used his bone wings to propel himself into the air and barely escaped the pull. From above, Kimimaro looked down at Naruto and realized the complexity of the fight. Naruto decided it was time to demonstrate the final difference between them and prepared to end the battle. Naruto activated his domain expansion, Unlimited Void. The world around them turned bright and pulled Kimimaro and Taiya into a realm where information flooded their senses and overwhelmed them. Kimimaro froze, his mind assaulted by endless stimuli and knowledge, and he fell from the sky, unable to move or think clearly. Naruto caught Kimimaro and placed him on the ground, announcing quietly that it was over. The domain dissipated and the world returned to normal. After a few minutes, Naruto stood over Kimimaro and offered a hand to help him up, commending him for fighting well and acknowledging his warrior spirit. The toll of Kimimaro's mysterious illness, exacerbated by the strain of fighting such an overwhelmingly powerful opponent, finally took its effect. Kimimaro struggled to remain upright and coughed harshly, a grim reminder of the terminal conditions sapping his strength. With pride still in his eyes, he looked up at Naruto as a defeated warrior ready to face the end. Kimimaro asked Naruto to finish him, saying he had failed his mission and that his body had betrayed him, and that there was no honor in being spared. Naruto shook his head and said he did,